Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Izuku is obsessed with heroes, and met Kyouka Jirou and fall in love, part 2. So before we start, please go check out the author of this fanfic, Curious Pug 5, link is in the description. Also subscribe to our channel, and like this video. So let's begin the video. Kaminari and Uraraka were outside now, sitting on a bench under a tree. They had not talked to each other much throughout their first year at UA. However, they knew each other just well enough to not feel uncomfortable about the situation. They both sensed what this was about. So, like you're best friends with Midoriya, Kaminari finally said. That's fair to say, Uraraka sighed. She looked over to Kaminari, surprised by his sudden gloom. There was no relaxing for the ever easygoing student. IzuJirou and Midoriya, you know. You know what? Uraraka said, tensing up. Together? Uraraka grit her teeth. No, there was no way that could be the case. She figured Midoriya would have told her right away if that was like that. It just could not be. No way. I know they've been hanging out with each other more recently, but I'm sure she still likes you, Uraraka said. Wait, what do you mean? Kaminari said with a startled tone. Silence over both of them yet again. Uraraka was certainly not like Ashido when it came to romance, but she occasionally liked to pair people together, as she saw fit. Her, and Deku, obviously, were the first match, but she also always thought Kaminari and Jiro had mutual feelings for one another. You like Jiro, right? I'm surprised you haven't asked her out yet, Uraraka said. Oh, I don't feel like that at all. We're good friends, and all, but I don't like her like that. Wait, she didn't tell you that she likes me, right? No, it's just well, I thought you two liked each other, since you're always together. Uraraka said defensively. Nope, we're just good friends. I was only asking because we haven't talked as much recently. I was just worried that I made her mad or something. And besides, I know how you feel about Midoriya, so I thought you would know, Kaminari said. What? No, okay, fine, I do like Deku. But Jiro isn't mad at you, she's just been busy. Don't worry, Uraraka said. Oh, thank goodness. I was feeling guilty, but things have been pretty crazy the past few weeks. I can try to ask her sometime soon if you really need the assurance. I'm sorry you felt like that. Truthfully, I've felt the same about Deku. He's been with Jiro so much. But I don't think he's mad at me, Uraraka said. Thanks. And I'm sure he's just been busy too. They sat again in silence, unsure of what else to say. Kaminari got up moments later, and left without saying another word. Uraraka stared up at the sky, thinking about Deku, Jiro, and the sleepover on Friday. Between Mina and Deku, what's gotten into me lately? I have to end this once, and for all, Uraraka said. Just go like this dude, Kyouka Jirou said. Going on a rampage with the bass in his hands, he played louder and louder as he got further into the song. Midoriya was too embarrassed, nervous, and shocked to even play a single note. Kyouka was embarrassed too, although she knew she should have warned Midoriya prior to the lesson about how her father can act. Mika, meanwhile, crossed her arms and shook her head. The four of them sat in the small studio room together, but despite only one person playing at the moment, it sounded like a concert right before them. Kyouka, come on! Show this dude what you can do, Kyouka said. Kyouka grumbled. One look at Midoriya was all it took to know how uncomfortable he was. But she knew she had to get started, or else the night would be ruined before it even started. Kyouka began joining in on the song her father played, one that was written by him himself. Mika watched both of them to make sure their technique was on point. Midoriya, seeing Kyouka now playing, strummed a few notes on his own. You two are doing fantastic. Louder! Come on, honey, you need to join too, Kyouka said, looking over to his wife. Mika said something, but it was drowned out by the three basses. They approached the final notes of the song, with Kyouka and Kyouka hitting it in synchronization, while Midoriya watched them both. Both of them took deep breaths as they concluded. That's how you play bass. What do you think? Kyouka said. It's cool, thanks for showing me how to play, Mr. Jirou, Midoriya said. Just call me Kyouka, there ain't no formalities here. What did you think of how I played, Izuku? Kyouka said, blurting out the first thing she could think of to divert the conversation. You were incredible, as always, Midoriya said. Oh, come on, it wasn't that good, Kyouka said, tapping her jacks together. How about, enough, Mika said, cutting off her husband with two earphone jacks in front of his face. Kyouka, stop being hard on yourself. Izuku, my apologies for the disorganization. How about we start with some basic notes, slowly, Kyouka? Of course. Yes, honey. Izuku, Kyouka, here's some scales. Try it out, Kyouka said. Boring. Mina Ashido pouted, as she threw another dart onto the dartboard on her door. None of the other girls were around, leaving her by herself in her room after school, much to her. As she tossed the last dart, She thought about the impending sleepover, and her plan with Uraraka to expose Jiro. Oh, that's it. Darts. She's so good at darts, so that'll certainly make her crack. Hee hee. She then heard a text notification from her phone. Katsuki Bakugo, yep, they left together. Almost got caught too. Now leave me alone. Ha! It's going to be a match, Ashido said, going into a breakdance, as she spun around on her bedroom floor. Another hour passed, with it now being 5 p.m., and the base lesson was over. Midoriya was feeling more comfortable with the focus being on the basics, while Kyouka was relieved that her father had finally chilled out for more than 5 minutes. Afterwards, they packed everything up, and went back to the living room. Thank you so much for the lesson, Mika, and Kyoto, and you too, Kyouka, for even inviting me over, Midoriya said. No problem, Kyouka said, sitting on the same couch as him, while her parents were across from them. Would you care to stay for dinner, Izuku? It's the least we can do, Mika said. Oh, I thought. Kyouka slung an earphone jack right past his nose, prompting him to close his mouth. She gulped, as she tried to think fast. He was actually planning to stay for the night. If that was okay with you too, Kyouka said. Of course. It's the least we can do for the two of you for all you go through, as UA students, Mika said. Ha! Guess I can teach you some more things about the way of music, right kid? Kyoto said. Oh, of course, Mr. Kyoto, Midoriya said. We're going to go cook dinner now. Kyouka, Izuku, we'll be in the kitchen if you need us, Mika said. The two parents left the room alone for Kyouka and Izuku now. Realizing they were on the same couch together, Midoriya gandered around the room once more, trying to take his mind off of the nerves by reading what was on the wall. I have some homework to do, so I'm going to my room. I can show you to the guest room, if you want, Jiro said. Yeah, good idea. I totally forgot about schoolwork, Midoriya said, relieved. She led Midoriya upstairs, and pointed to the room across from her own bedroom. The guest room was rather bland, with beige walls, a nicely sized bed, a closet, and a dresser, and absolutely nothing else was in there. Jiro told Midoriya that she would be right across the hall if he needed her, and shut the door to the guest room. Midoriya breathed. It may have seemed silly for him to be all worked up, but truthfully, he had not felt relaxed since he had woken up. Over the past couple of weeks, Jiro had gone from being just another person to the one he cared about the most. And despite being around her, at her own house, the nerves only grew and grew. A phone call is here. A phone call is here. Huh? Oh, Uraraka, Midoriya said, answering it. Hello, Deka. Where are you? She asked. Hey, I'm at Kyouka for the night. Her parents are teaching me how to play bass. What are you up to? Midoriya asked. Oh, Deku, are you too? Never mind. Bye, Uraraka said. She hung up before Midoriya could say another word. Huh, that's unlike her. I hope she's doing alright, Midoriya said. Over in Jiro's room, she laid in her bed while holding a book in the air. She barely paid attention to it. She knew that Midoriya, along with herself, needed the break after the stress-inducing lesson. After a few more moments, she put on headphones, and began listening to her top rock playlist that she had handpicked herself. I hope he's doing alright. Midoriya, more than happy to be away from her parents for the time being, worked furiously to complete his assignments. Jiro was on his mind, as he worked hard, and he knew the faster he was able to complete it, the faster he would be able to see her again. I hope she's doing alright. Downstairs in the kitchen, the Jiro parents prepared the meal for the evening katsudan. Kyouka requested the meal in particular, catching them off guard considering it was not one of her favorites, but they figured she must have been craving it for whatever reason. Honey, Mika said. What is it, Mika? How are you doing on time? Kyoto said. Good, good. But don't you think it's strange that Kyouka is so open to this Izuku about her music? And how did she feel comfortable enough to let him spend the night here? Mika asked. That's what friends do, nothing strange about that, Kyoto said. Well, no, I mean the music part in particular. She's always been so reclusive regarding her hobby. Maybe she's finally opening up. I hope so. She may not accept it, but she's talented enough to be a pro if she ditches being a hero. I doubt that'll happen though, Kyoto said. Still, Mika nodded, and wondered if there was something more to the equation. Once Midoriya finished his work, he texted some of his classmates about how things were going, along with Inko to assure her everything was alright. He wanted to check on Jiro, but also was not sure if he should interfere with her studies. Dinner should be ready soon anyways. I'll practice one for all right here, no contact, Midoriya said. Several punches and kicks were thrown midair, all while making sure he did not make too much noise or anything. Although the quirk that had been transferred to him was not 100% suitable for his body yet, plenty of progress had been made over the past few months, thanks to UA and All Might, Detroit. Whoa, Izuku! Are you good? Midoriya saw Jiro at the doorway with a concerned look. She wore purple headphones, which matched her hair color, while also holding a book in her hands. Yep, all good. Just practicing a little. Hey, I love your headphones, Midoriya said. Oh really? Thanks. I got these back in junior high, Kyouka said, as pink crawled onto her cheeks. You know, I can show you some other. Kyouka, Izuku, dinner's ready. Coning right down, they both yelled. As they went down the stairs, Midoriya realized that he would be spending the meal with the Jiro family. However, he felt more calm, knowing their personalities from the lesson. The time to decompress afterwards also helped clear his mind. Just like All Might said, I just need to be myself. And so dinner with the Jiros began. Midoriya and Kyouka were next to each other on one side of the table, while her parents were on the other side. Once it was served, Midoriya's eyes lit up as he saw his plate. Katsudon. My favorite. What a coincidence, Midoriya said, as he dug in. Yeah, I requested it, Kyouka said with a smile in the corner of her mouth. Her parents both raised a brow. The four of them then ate, famished for a meal after the busy afternoon. Jiros chit-chatted about small things, along with how Yue was going, but Midoriya remained idle. Kyoka noticed him. And how's Yue been for you, Izuku? A lot of homework? Kyoka said. It's not too bad. In the end, it's all going towards becoming a hero, so it's worth it, Midoriya said. Still, Aizawa could go easier on us with homework some nights. But the training is awesome, Kyouka said. That's my favorite part. Applying what you learn into practical use is what counts, Midoriya said. Speaking of which, Kyouka told me about your fandom of heroes. Who are your favorites? Mika said. Oh, she did. My favorite is All Might, and it's who I base my fighting style and attitude off of. But isn't everyone's favorite All Might? Kyoka said. Dad, it's not like that for Izuku, Kyouka interjected. He literally adores him. He has so much merchandise of him. He goes to conventions, and All Might is even his mentor. All Might to Izuku is like music to us. So All Might and heroes are your passion, basically? Kyoka said. Yes, just as Kyouka put it, Midoriya said. And I think it's awesome, Izuku. Really, tell them all about it. The dude's a literal All Might encyclopedia actually. Ask him about any hero, and he can give you a perfect analysis on them, Kyouka said, her eyes twinkling. The rest of dinner was a back and forth between the four of them about different heroes, allowing Midoriya to feel even more comfortable. After in-depth talks on All Might, Endeavor, Wash, Kyoka's favorite, Crust, and present Mike, needless to say, Mika and Kyoka were amazed. Once everything was settled, Midoriya went back upstairs for some additional studying before calling it a day. Kyouka helped her parents clean up from the meal in the meantime. After they were done, Kyoka went back to the studio to work on a new song he was writing. That left Mika and Kyouka, who went to the living room, turning on the television to watch an evening talk show. Kyouka, Mika said after a few moments. What's up, Mom? I need to know. Why did you want katsudon for dinner? Mika said. Why not? It's a nice dish. Mika shook her head. I know you better than anyone. You haven't even liked katsudon ever since you were little. I was just craving it. What's wrong with that? Sure, it's not my favorite, but I was just in the mood for it, Kyouka said, twirling her right jack nervously out of confusion. I heard what Izuku said. It's his favorite dish. Kyuka's twirling stopped. She knew exactly why her mother was probing her with so many questions about dinner now. Okay, and? Kyouka said, looking to the ground. The way you talked about him is unlike anything I've ever seen you act before. Mom, please. Stop with all the questions. Just say it. I know you want to say it. And the answer's yes. There, now let's move on, Kyouka said. Oh, Kyouka, I wasn't trying to aggravate you. But I was wondering if there was something more between you and Izuku, that's all. I didn't want to just bring it up out of nowhere, Mika said. Kyouka sighed. Well, there you have it. But I like him. That's all. I don't even think he likes me like that, honestly. But we aren't hiding anything from you, Kyouka said. Very well. I approve, Mika said. Approve? I think Izuku is a good young man. So if you want to be with him, I don't think you are making a mistake. There's no need to be tense, honey. Trust me, when your grandmother found out about how I liked Kyoka it was way more awkward, Mika said. Oh, thank you. How did she find out? Kyouka said, her trademark smirk returning. Your father and I were on a bench in a park. He was playing the bass, and I was singing a popular song from the time. Well, it was a romantic song, and the lyrics led us closer, and we kissed, Mika said. That's amazing. I wish Izuku and I could do that too, Kyouka said, as she looked at her feet. Wait, so how did Grandma find out? She walked up to us and caught us kissing, Mika said. That's a bummer. Well, she was accepting, so it all worked out. Sorry again if this was awkward, but well, let's just say I didn't want history to repeat itself. Better to find out like this. Right. Mika said with a small smile. I guess you're right. Thanks. Mika then pulled Kyouka into a hug. They watched the show together for a few more minutes, and soon enough, it was 10:30 p.m. It's getting late, and I have to be up early tomorrow, so I'm going to bed. Good night, Kyouka, Mika said. Kyouka remained in the room alone, watching the show, as Mika went upstairs. As Mika passed the guest room, she glanced in to see Midoriya closing his books, and putting them into his backpack. I hope our hospitality has served you well, Mika said. Thank you, it has. Dinner was excellent too. Where's Kyouka at, Mrs. Jirou? Midoriya asked. Downstairs in the living room. Good night, Mika said, entering her bedroom. Midoriya crept downstairs, not wanting to disturb anyone in case they were sleeping. He usually did not fall asleep this early, so he was hoping he would get a chance to be with Kyouka without anyone else around, including her parents. As nice as they were, he felt like he was walking on eggshells around them, although dinner helped him calm down. He entered the living room to see Kyouka on the couch watching the television. She wore deep dope-themed pajamas with a pale yellow shade. Her eyes widened once she saw him, but she shook her head, and then gave a smile. Hey Izuku. Kyouka, what are you watching? Oh, you might like this better, Jiro said. She changed the channel, and All Might now appeared on the screen, complete with his yellow suit. He was doing an interview, clearly an old one, as he was in his muscular form. This is a great interview, Midoriya said, as he sat down on a chair in the corner of the room. Izuku, don't sit there. There's plenty of room next to me, Jiro said. Oh right, okay, Midoriya said. He sat down next to her, about half a cushion away from her. They sat in silence, as they watched the interview. Jiro put an earphone jack in her phone, so she could listen to rock while also paying attention to the television. Hey Kyouka. I was wondering about something you said earlier, Midoriya said, the time now going on 11 p.m. Sure, Izuku, Jiro said, scooting a tad closer to him. You said All Might was my mentor. What did you mean by that? Midoriya asked. He remembered what All Might had told him at their meeting. While he was happy for Midoriya about a potential relationship, there was to be absolutely no talk of one for all. He hoped Jiro had not cracked the case. Isn't he though? Jiro said. I mean, I guess you could say so, Midoriya said. All Might helps all of us, sure. But you're always going to his office, and he always seems to give you the most advice and critique in training, and he always calls on you in class. I'm not saying you're his favorite, or anything, but he does put extra work into you, Jiro said, placing her left hand on the cushion Izuku sat on. Well, I do model my fighting style after him. Maybe he caught on to it? Besides, he knows how much of a fan I am, so maybe he's just being nice. No one else in the class is like that towards him, you know, Midoriya said. Kyouka gulped. She inched her hand closer to Midoriya's. Without him seeing, she then placed her hand on top of his. Before Midoriya could say something, Jiro continued talking. I guess that's true. You're lucky, Izuku. I wish I could have a special mentor too, Jiro said. I guess you could say that. Midoriya glanced at their hands. They were both flushing, although neither noticed. Awkward, as it was, there was no way either of them were going to say something, considering they had been longing for a moment like this. Jiro knew she could not let this slip away. She ripped out her earphone jack from her phone, and closed her eyes, laying back on the cushion behind her. Midoriya followed suit. Even with their eyes closed, they enjoyed touching each other's hands even if it was not a true, interlocked clasp. More time passed, and with the television still on, and with their hands still together, they fell asleep. Mika Jirou woke up early the next day due to her morning commitments. As she prepared for the day, and went downstairs, she smirked once she entered the living room. Izuku and Kyouka were sleeping together on the couch. Very well, Mika said, leaving the house without another word. A few hours later, Midoriya rubbed his eyes and yawned. He then remembered that he was at Jiro's house, having received a bass lesson from her parents. But then he registered that the room was sideways. He looked to his right to see his head on Jiro's shoulder, and their hands were on top of each other's. His face warmed. His sudden movement woke Jiro up. They both realized their positions, and backed up, blushing over the experience. Jiro left the room without a word, and went upstairs to her bedroom. Moments later, Midoriya went up to the guest room where his belongings were, making sure that he did not disturb her. The two of them walked back to school for the morning's classes without saying a word. They were not mad at each other by any means, but rather embarrassed over what had happened. It was only a head-on-shoulder, and hand-hold, and it happened in their sleep, but it was still awkward to think about. After unloading their belongings in their dorm rooms, they raced back to their classroom for homeroom. Everyone else was already in their seats, and a few people said good morning to them without asking why they were the last to arrive. The day went by fast for the two of them, although they had not talked to each other, even at lunch. Finally, it was time for their last class, which was their hero training course with Aizawa. Aizawa trudged into the room at the exact second the class started, pleased by the sight of all the students in their seats. He yawned, and put a stack of papers on the desk while shedding his sleeping bag cocoon. Good afternoon. Frankly, I'm not too thrilled with today's lesson, but Nisa mandated this for all first-year hero students, Aizawa said. What's the lesson then, Aizawa-sensei? Is it fun? Mina said. A game of basketball. To improve your decision-making and reaction time. After changing into their gym uniforms, much to Ilda's disappointment that they could not use costumes, Aizawa had the class line up on the benches in the UA gymnasium. He briefly explained the rules of the game, since a few of the students were unsure of how to play. That's that. You will be divided into 4 teams of 5. I randomly assigned you all. Team A will be Midoriya, Ashido, Uraraka, Bakugo, and Mineta. Team B will be Kaminari, Jiro, Kota, Kirashima, and Ajiri. Team C will be Shoji, Jirou, Yayorozu, Tokoemi, and Ilda. Finally, Team D will be Aoyama, Hagakure, Sato, Siro, and Todoroki. I'm not repeating all of that, so you better have heard what team you're on, Aizawa said. I'm going to destroy you all, Bakugo yelled. Not a damn chance, Kirashima replied. Can we use our quirks in the game, Aizawa-sensei? Midoriya said, roughly familiar with the game, and already scheming ideas. Of course. It would be irrational to prohibit them. You cannot harm your opponent though, Aizawa said. The class gathered up with their teams, which included an eye roll from Bakugo, as it was realized Midoriya and Uraraka were his teammates. Team A and Team B were called to the court to play the first game. Aizawa would act as the referee for the game. Okay, scoring will be simplified for the sake of the exercise. Each basket will only count as 1 point, regardless of where it is shot at. First to 3 baskets wins, and the winner of this match plays the winner of the next match. Ready, go, Aizawa said, throwing the ball into the air. Ajiri grabbed the ball with her tongue out of mid-air to gain possession, a huge advantage for a short game. She dribbled the ball down the court, and threw it to Jiro, who caught it with his tail. Bakugo and Jiro stood across from each other, just a few feet from the basket. Take the damn shot, tail freak, Bakugo said. Aggressive, HM? Okay then, Jiro said. He jumped, and took a shot with his arms, but caught Bakugo off guard, as he threw the ball across the court to Kirashima. With Team A being surprised by the move, he had an easy basket to make it a 1-0 game. Damn it! Deku, that was your man to guard, Bakugo yelled. Sorry, Kaken, I got distracted, Midoriya said. On the bench together watching, Yayorozu gave a surprised look at the sequence. That is unlike Midoriya to not pay attention, right, Kyouka? Yayorozu said. Oh yeah, pretty strange of Izuku, Jiro said. Now with it being Team A's possession, Bakugo had the ball, as he went to the other side of the court. He gave a scowl to Kirashima and Jiro, as he scanned for his teammates. Ball guy, plan A pronto, Bakugo yelled. Mineta rapidly threw his sticky balls over the court, sticking Kaminari and Jiro to the ground with some lucky tosses. Hey now, what the heck, Mineta? Kaminari said. Bakugo took a shot from the top of the key. It was a perfect arc that was destined to score, and one that he had practiced many times, thanks to the basketball hoops his junior high school had installed. But the trajectory was stopped by Ajiri, who used her tongue to slap the ball downwards. Deku, catch it! Uraraka yelled. Midoriya shook his head, again staring off into space at the ground. He looked up to see the deflected basketball right above his head. Without thinking, he activated One for All, and punched the ball skywards, sending it straight up to the ceiling. Deku, what the fuck are you doing? You're supposed to shoot the ball, not try to destroy it, Bakugo said. Like you're one to talk, Ajiri whispered, only being heard by Jirou. Fortunately for both teams, the ball was not destroyed by any means. It bounced off the ceiling, and was falling like a rock back to the ground. I got it, Ajiri yelled, preparing to launch her tongue. No wait, Sue, Uraraka said, tapping Ajiri, which made her float into the air, passing by the ball, as it came down without affecting it. Ashido jumped above the stuck Kaminari, and caught the ball, and took a shot, tying the game 1-1. Kyouka, is Midoriya really okay? It seems like he is not paying attention, Yayorozu said. How would I know? If you're really concerned about him, why don't you ask him yourself? Jiro said. Yayorozu was taken aback, but shook it off. Aizawa-sensei, I will be right back, Yayorozu said. Kyouka, follow me please. They exited the gym together in a dimly lit hallway. Neither of them wanted to speak up first, but Yayorozu figured she had no other choice. Listen, I do not want to make assumptions, but I know you and Midoriya know each other well. I noticed that he was gone yesterday too, and I know you were home for your weekly visit, so I was wondering if he told you how he is feeling, and why he is acting differently, Yayorozu said. Jiro shuddered. At first she thought Yayorozu had figured out they were together last night, but that was not the case. Still, she was leery of how she had said know each other well. We talked, he's just felt awkward about something, I guess, Jiro said, figuring she was technically not lying. Well, maybe you can help him talk through it. Obviously I am not saying to intrude, but clearly he trusts you on some level. He would probably appreciate it. Jiro nodded her head, agreeing that it would be a good idea, even if Yayorozu only had half the truth. Wait, why do you care so much about him? Have you ever even talked to him? Jiro said, tapping her jacks together. No, but we are training to be heroes, right? That extends beyond fights and rescues. It is always important to make sure everyone is doing well. But I figured you would be better in this situation, Yayorozu said, the two smiling at each other in agreement. Are you looking forward to the sleepover tomorrow night? I actually thought. Before they could go any further, the gym doors opened, with Zero waving his arms with a toothy grin. Get back in here now. It's 2-2, the next point wins, and they're having a hell of a meltdown, Zero said. A meltdown? Jiro said. Yep. Some teammate drama between Bakugo and Midoriya. Heh, Zero said. Zero led Jirou and Yayorozu back into the gym. The two teams were standing around awkwardly, as Bakugo and Midoriya argued with one another at the center of the gym. Deku, do you really want to lose this game? Bakugo said. No, Kaken, I don't, Midoriya said. Then act like it. You're staring off into space all game. Something on your mind, you dweeb? Bakugo said. No one in particular, Midoriya responded. Wait, did you say no one? As in a person, and not a thing? Ashido said. Ashido joined the two of them in the center of the court, making Midoriya gasp for air. She gave a wink towards Bakugo, who gave a disgusted look in response. Mineta and Uraraka, their two remaining teammates, also went over to them. Before Aizawa could intervene, someone else spoke up. Deku, please, we know something is going on, Uraraka said. It's none of your business, okay? Really, I'm fine. I just need some time to think about things, that's all, Midoriya said. Jiro raised an eyebrow, as she realized who exactly the someone he had to think about was. Ashido practically screamed, as she sprinted over to Midoriya, and put her hands on his shoulders. I knew it! I knew it! You can't stop thinking about them. You're in love with Kai. Jiro made it to Ashido just in time to put an earphone jack into her ear, which allowed her to project her heartbeat at full blast. Ashido stumbled over, and covered her ears, but was unable to free herself of the jack. Jirou, stop! Ashido yelled. Stop trying to sabotage our team, Mineta said, while throwing his purple balls all over the room towards Jirou and Ashido. As Jirou, Mineta, and Ashido bickered, with Ashido finally freeing herself, Bakugo and Midoriya began using attacks on one another, although neither landed a hit. Uraraka tried to intervene, but Midoriya refused to stop. In his mind, it was Bakugo who had provoked him, and he was just defending himself. All the chaos made Aizawa's eyes red partially from his blood vessels, but mostly from the activation of his quirk, Erasure. Although he was unsure who he should use it on, he decided to use it on Bakugo first. All of you stop immediately or you will be expelled. This is not a deception, Aizawa yelled in a voice louder than the students had ever heard before. Every student instantly stopped using their quirks, and looked to their teacher. His fists were shaking, and his hair was now raised since his quirk was in use. Midoriya, Bakugo, Mineta, Ashido, Jiro, you're all going to my office. The rest of you, go to All Might's office so he can teach you the rest of the day. And if I hear of any more trouble, you will never set foot in UA again, Aizawa said. The 5 culprits followed Aizawa out of the gym, while Ilda and Yayorozu led the group of remaining students to another exit. Aizawa's quirk was now deactivated, but he was still filled with anger. Midoriya and Bakugo did not dare look at one another. Ashido dragged along. Mineta hoped midnight was nearby, and Jirou was sick to her stomach, feeling far worse than the others. She knew why Midoriya was feeling the way it was, and because of what had happened the prior night, they were now all in this mess. Irrational. That might be what some people would think Aizawa would say at this moment, but that would be far from the truth. In his office, Midoriya, Jirou, Bakugo, Ashido, and Mineta sat around a round wooden table, with Aizawa joining them after getting a cup of water. He cracked his knuckles, as he prepared for the conversation. Students, let me put it this way. Why are you here at UA? Aizawa asked. Silence fell over the room. Not one of the 5 guilty students wanted to make a wrong move. The situation was already awkward enough, as it is, but they knew it could be far worse if Aizawa threatened expulsion. They dared not tread that far. That was not a rhetorical question. Now one of you answers me. Why are you here at UA? Aizawa repeated. We are at UA for our education and formation to become heroes, Midoriya said monotonously. What he said, Jiro said. Yeah, Mineta said. holding back a snicker. Correct. Now, in training exercises, such as the game of basketball, what is the objective? The students mulled over the question before answering. Mineta looked around the room, avoiding eye contact with Aizawa. His 4 other peers stared downwards at the table. To win? Ashido answered. Sure dash, but there's more to it, Aizawa said. To destroy the opponent through ultimate victory? Bakugo mumbled. You're missing a point to this question, Aizawa said. To become stronger? Jiro said. Well, you're not wrong, but consider this. These training exercises are training. As in, it is practice for the real world. While winning is a fundamental part of these activities, the goal is to develop your skills, as heroes, to prepare you for hero work once you graduate, Aizawa said. I see, Midoriya said, scribbling what his teacher had said into his journal. Jiro gave a small grin, but stopped when she realized now was not the time. Basketball? I've never played that game in my life. All Might had joined the 15 remaining students in the gymnasium, since he had been appointed to teach them for the remainder of the class period. He skimmed through a book that he had carefully placed a paper cover over to hide the title. Sensei, we know the rules of the game, so Kirashima said. Gotcha! Zero yelled, as he jumped over Kirashima's shoulders, and dunked on the basket. Whoa! All Might yelled, dropping the book in amazement over seeing a slam dunk for the first time in his life. The cover of the book slid off, and conveniently, the book landed in such a way that the cover was readable. An intrigued Ajiri hopped over to the book, and picked it up. She put a finger on her chin, and looked over to All Might. Even the biggest idiots can become teachers too, Ribbit? What's that? Ajiri said. Hey, it seems like you all know how to play this game, so just shoot the ball around until class is out. I'll stay to make sure you all behave. We got a deal? All Might said. Ilda raised his hand in a stiff manner, but All Might Sensei, how will this be educational for us? Who cares, let's go! Kirashima yelled, as he grabbed the ball, and ran down the court. Meanwhile, Uraraka stood off to the side. With all of the things that had unfolded recently, even just today, it had felt like 3 whole months had gone by in the span of a week for her. Deku, Ribbit? Uraraka looked up to see Ajiri had left the court to join her. Flames, ice, and cannons were set off behind her, but neither of them cared to look. Achiko, I would ask if you're okay, but I can tell something is the matter, Ribbit, Ajiri said. Where do I even begin, Uraraka said. So this is why I'm so frustrated. I understand that teamwork and cooperation are challenging, believe me, I hate it myself. But damn it, you cannot bicker like that in a real situation, or someone will get hurt. Whether it be yourself or someone you are trying to save. Got that? Aizawa said, standing up with his hair floating in the air, signifying his quirk was activated. Yes, Sensei, the students replied in unison. I expect that the next time we are in a situation where teamwork is required for class, you will all behave much better than today, Aizawa said. Yes, Sensei, the students repeated. Good. You will all be going back to your dorms now. Let this serve as a warning to put grudges aside in class. Now go. Midoriya, stay for now, please, Aizawa said. Oh yes, Sensei, Midoriya muttered. Bakugo, Ashido, and Mineta trekked out without another word. Jiro wanted to say something, but left a moment later, staring at Midoriya, as she exited the room. Aizawa now sat back down with Midoriya in the chair next to his student. Problem child. I'm not mad at you, but I know something is bothering you. You never just zone out during class. Everything okay? Aizawa said. Midoriya sighed. He looked down to the table, and then back up to Aizawa. The words struggled to form in his brain. I'm sorry, Sensei. Something happened last night that was bothering me. I shouldn't have let it distract me during class. I will never do that again. I'm alright now, Midoriya said. I see. Well, if you need any help, just let me know. I know you know how to improve though, so I'm not worried. Otherwise, you're now dismissed for the day, as well, Aizawa said. And that's why I've been so lost recently, Uraraka said. All Might had noticed that Uraraka and Ajiri were not participating, but he figured he should leave the two of them alone rather than forcing them to join in. I see. I don't blame you for feeling like that, Ribbit. But I'm sure Midoriya still cares about you. He just got you that keychain recently, and I know the sleepover will be awkward tomorrow, but we're all classmates, so we have no choice, Ajiri said, but I will help you through this. Thank you, Ajiri. You're such a great friend, Uraraka said with a faint smile. The bell then rang, signifying the end of the school day. The remaining students left the gymnasium, as All Might breathe a sigh of relief. Having been dismissed early, Jiro remained in her room for the rest of the afternoon. She figured she might as well get all of her homework and studying done early so she could have the evening to herself. Despite her best efforts though, she struggled to focus. All she could think about was what she should say to Midoriya the next time they were together. Ugh, she had texted him a few times, not caring about annoying him with multiple notifications. But there was still no reply. Come on, this isn't a big deal, we were just sleeping. Although it felt like an eternity to her, it was eventually 5 p.m. Enough was enough. She left her room, and went over to Midoriya's. She knocked several times, too many times to count dash, but there was no answer. Well, you can't hide from me. Jiro activated her right earphone jack, and placed it on his door. She then placed her ear on the door to further improve her sound detection. One little breath or pin drop could not escape her when her quirk and focus were perfectly in sync. Seconds went by, then minutes. But all she heard was a deafening silence. Not even a footstep. Alright, Izuku. You win. Jiro got a piece of paper from her pocket, and scrambled to write whatever words came to her mind. Once she was satisfied, she slid the paper under his door, and left the scene. With that taken care of, it was time for her to pack for tomorrow's sleepover. Nope. Not gonna happen. Never again. Midoriya trekked down the path he always took for his morning runs before school, although it was now the afternoon instead. Having been dismissed from class by Aizawa, he decided to take a second run that day rather than confront his other classmates once they were done for the day, as well. Not to mention that he would also be able to avoid Bakugo and Jirou, as well. He could see several stores beyond the trees of the campus, such as the food marts and corner stores like Sakamoto's, but he paid no attention to them this time around. He just looked downward, taking in the gravel pebbles of the path, as he ruminated yet again. I hate acting like this. Why can't I just get over it? Who cares if that happened last night, Midoriya said, while he felt his face heat up. Stop that. It's not like I chose to lay my head on her shoulder, right? He sighed. Avoiding Jiro the entire day only made everything much more awkward for him. Staring off into space, and not focusing on his classes only brought more attention upon himself. And having it kindle another incident with Bakugo, even though it had nothing to do with him in the first place. I know I owe it to everyone to put this behind me. If I want to become the greatest hero, then I can't get flustered by girls or anything, even if it's someone that I know well. All Might would never be like this. It's like he said in our meeting the other day, before I went to her house. Heroes need to prioritize their time, and only think about certain things within the moment. I can't think about Jiro all day long, and let it distract me, but how can I stop when I'm like this? Midoriya nodded. He knew that moments like these were not easy to deal with, given his awkwardness from the years before he entered high school, but he had enough trouble on his hands as is. After all, Jiro was a fellow hero too, not some lunatic villain he had to defeat. Yet Jiro's a friend. But what do I even do next after everything? Stupid Deku. Shut the hell up already. Kakin? Midoriya activated one for all to leap into the air, and turned around instantaneously. The person who talked behind him was none other than Bakugo, standing there with a snarl. I'm not stupid, you know, Bakugo said. What do you mean, Kakin? I wasn't trying to hinder our team's performance. It's just that, Just what? Bakugo yelled. It's just that. Midoriya trailed off. I know you're in love with Lobes, you fucking idiot. You don't need to stutter every other word, Tome. I'm not Jiro, you dipshit. Midoriya's legs shook, and he fell to the ground, almost taking a seat on the pathway based on how he collapsed. Bakugo moved closer to him, while creating some small, crackling explosions from his palms. But Midoriya did not even notice that, for his mind was now stuck on one thing, and one thing alone. That one thing was not even the prior night now, with all those thoughts fading instantly upon seeing Bakugo. All he could ask himself was how Bakugo had even the slightest clue that he had feelings for Jiro. Ha, what a wimp. You couldn't even respond with a single word? How freaking obvious can you possibly be? Bakugo said. You know, Kakin, I'm not going to confirm or deny. Deny what? The fact that you stare at Jiro during every single class? The fact that you two are always together every fucking second of the day? How about the fact that you took her to the fucking All Might convention of all things with you when you damn sure know she does give a single fuck about your hero fandom? So what the hell could you possibly deny, stupid Deku? Bakugo screamed from the top of his lungs, launching an explosion skyward. Sure, maybe you are right, but now I have to ask you something, Midoriya muttered. What could you possibly have to ask of all people? Bakugo asked. Well, why do you even care? It's not like you have any interest in my life. As far as I know, Midoriya said. Bakugo's palms are even more sweaty now. All of his yelling and emotions distracted him from the very reason he even followed Midoriya in the first place. You're damn right I don't give a fuck about your life. But what I do give a fuck about is that you act like your normal self again. Because, you know, with One for All, and the whole agreement we made about getting stronger, you do remember that, don't you? Well, you can't zone out and be distracted during class, and shit, Bakugo said. Yeah, I do remember, and that makes sense, Kakin. Deku. I don't care whether you date Lobes or not. But you can't act like a buffoon every single day in the process. I understand, I want to get better and focus, but that's the problem. How do I not act like a buffoon? Especially in front of her, Midoriya asked. Bakugo clasped his hands together and cracked his knuckles. That's not for me to tell you. You need to figure out how to act if you want to go anywhere with her or with anyone, really. But shit, how about instead of muttering to yourself every freaking moment, you instead just talk it out? You're not going to get anywhere by just talking to yourself all day long, so use that energy to be productive. That way, you can prioritize one for all again. Damn it, Bakugo said. Yeah, I guess that's a good point. I'll have to rip the band-aid off at some point anyways, Midoriya added. Ugh, don't tell anyone I told you this one piece of advice, Deku. But remember my old hag, I mean my mom? Bakugo said. Oh yeah, Mrs. Mitsuki Bakugo. I certainly wouldn't. I don't need to hear her life story again. Anyways, we would fight all the damn time, and I'd just lock myself in my room to get away from her. But you know what? I realized that at some point, I'd have to speak to her again, since she is my mom after all. Whether I enjoyed it or not, we would talk, and work out some agreement, even if it meant we agreed to disagree. Point is, just talk to Lobes, and put all this bullshit behind you already. It's for the sake of everyone, so don't even accuse me of being nice to you. Got it, Deka? Bakugo said. Sure, I get that. Thanks for the advice, Kakin. I guess I'll go see Jiro later then. This really helped, Midoriya said. No shit, I'm King Explosion Murder, and I'll be the top hero, even over you. Well, I won't back down either. Let's not fight again right now, Midoriya advised. Ah, you're right. Later, Bakugo sprinted off in the direction of Yue, using his explosions to propel him through the air. He certainly did not come close to the speed of Ilda, but his explosion speed technique did allow him to travel at a rather fast pace compared to most heroes. When I said I owe it to everyone, well, that includes Bakugo too. Alright, I'm ready. Midoriya continued his trek, resolving to finish his walk before returning to Yue. But after he was finished, it would be time to confront Jiro about everything that happened. Aizawa, standing at the doorway of Aizawa's office, was All Might. Aizawa looked up from his computer with an expressionless look. He continued to type, as All Might approached his desk. So, what exactly happened in class? It's unlike you to just leave your class like that to discipline a few students instead of teaching, All Might said. Simple. Katsuki yelled at Izuku. Mina, Kyouka, and Minoru got involved. I already hated the class assignment enough, since it's irrational to play sports except for the health benefits. And I did not feel like having the fight escalate any further. Simple, really, Aizawa responded. Oh, I see then. I would certainly not question your tactics. You just wanted to know what was up with the problem child, Aizawa interjected. All Might gulped. He tried his best to avoid eye contact with Aizawa, but there was no way anyone could beat Eraserhead in a staring contest. Oh, I certainly wanted to hear if Izuku was okay, but I also wanted to know about the others too, All Might said. Well, Izuku zoned out during class all day long. I asked him about it, and he said it was a personal matter. I'm sure he'll talk to one of us if he needs more assistance. Shit? Oh shit, All Might said, leaving the room without another word. Midoriya was now back in the dorms, as he had finished his walk at long last. On the couches in the common room were Ilda, Mineta, and Aoyama, who were bickering with one another before Midoriya entered. The television had some samurai movies that Midoriya did not recognize, although the current battle appeared to make both characters very elusive. Ooh, troublemaker! A voice came out of nowhere, signifying Hagakure was also in the room, despite wearing no clothes over her invisible body. And then Aizawa screamed at Midoriya, and said he would expel him next time, and then, believe it or not, Ashido and Jiro hit on me for standing my ground, Mineta said. Mineta, that is an obscene thing to say. As your class president, I demand you to apologize immediately to all parties involved, Ilda said with a horrified expression, standing up in front of Mineta. Nah, Mineta, Ilda screamed. Ilda ties toy. Mineta was joking, of course, Aoyama said. I am not, Mineta said. Ha! Of course you're joking, Grape. I'm leaving. I have to pack for Yamamo's sleepover tomorrow night. Yay, Hagakure said, leaving the room in a dash, as she waved her arms although no one could notice besides herself. As Ilda and Mineta bickered more, Midoriya left the room, with no one objecting to it. He went upstairs to his floor, wanting to unwind in his room before talking to Jiro. It was best not to rush these kinds of things, even though he knew he had to talk to her tonight at some point. As he entered the room, the first thing that caught his eyes was not his All Might merchandise, his sloppy bed, or the blue box from the package he had received earlier, but instead a white piece of paper on the floor, directly in front of him. He picked it up to find writing on the other side of the paper. Izuku, thanks for coming over last night. Look, I get that it was awkward, but it was just accidental. We just fell asleep on the couch together, and I'm sure your head just slipped off the pillow or something. I dunno, but I'm not mad or anything. I just want the awkwardness to go away, okay? Forget about the couch. Yesterday was so much fun. I've always wanted something like that, just playing music with others, you know? It's my passion for a reason. Anyways, when I stopped by your room earlier, you didn't answer, so I left this note. Maybe you were out, maybe you just didn't want to talk to me, but I don't care. You're awesome, Green. Just remember that. When you're ready, stop by my room if you want, or just wait until homeroom tomorrow. But it's not a big deal. Oh, and now that I think about it, I won't be here at UA tomorrow after classes. I'm going over to Momo's for a sleepover. We can text if you want though. Anyways, see you soon. Don't worry about it. If I was actually upset, I would have told you right away. But I'm not. Everything's great. Kyouka Midoriya felt his heart race, and his cheeks burned. She wrote all of that out for real? Wow, I guess I had nothing to worry about after all. Stupid Dekukaken's right. I guess I have a lot to learn. A phone call is here. A phone call is here. Hello? Midoriya answered. Young Midoriya, are you okay? The caller said. Oh, all might. Yeah, why would I not be? Oh, I just heard you got caught up in trouble with Aizawa. I thought something worse happened. No, everything's fine. Thanks for reaching out though. Sure, but he did mention how you were zoning out all day long. I was just worried if something happened with One for All. Oh, it's nothing like that, don't worry. I would have told you right away if that was the case. It's just I can't stop thinking about my crush again. Which watch should I bring? I don't need one. Jiro checked her phone again, for what felt like the 100th time, but there was still no text from Midoriya. And they call it a super smartphone, huh? Come on, Izuku Jirou mumbled. She threw in a couple of shirts, so she would be covered for any sort of weather that could occur tomorrow. As she finished packing though, her doubts began to grow that she would see Midoriya anytime soon, but her door was still cracked open just in case. And that's what happened. Bakugo's talk helped me, but I still need to go confront her about it, Midoriya said, finishing his story about the past 24 hours, although he omitted Jiro's name for anonymity. Kid, you are really blowing this out of proportion. Just go to apologize to her. Yeesh. You're 16, cut yourself some slack already. Most kids your age would have zoned out because they were too excited to think about anything else. All Might said. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, All Might. I'm just nervous about these things, that's all. I get it, kiddo. Well, I gotta run, so I'll see you later, All Might said, ending the call. Alright, I can do this. Let's go, Midoriya said, taking one last scan around the room before exiting. Midoriya was now on the 3rd floor of the dorms, the same floor that Jiro stayed on. His heart thumped a little faster, okay, a lot faster. Noticing the door was cracked, he decided to enter without knocking. And that's why heroes know. Not right. I can't ever get this damn Izuku. Jiro's singing was interrupted by the only person she had longed to see all day long. Oh, hey Kyouka. Listen, I just wanted to apologize for being so distant today. It's just, Izuku. You know, it was kind of an awkward scenario, but I meant no harm, and, Izuku, I hope we can just put this behind us, and start over, and, Izuku. I don't care. Midoriya shut up instantly. Jiro got up from her bed, and stood in front of him. You saw my note, right? I really didn't mind. I kind of liked it, actually, Jiro said. The two of them stood in silence. Both of them tried their best to avoid each other's eye contact, as hard as it was. Green, just be you. I like you a lot better when you just act like yourself. I wasn't kidding when I said you're awesome, Jiro added. Before Midoriya could respond, Jiro stepped forward, and slid her hands down from his shoulders to his back. Midoriya did the same, and after a few seconds broke from the hug. Thanks, then Midoriya said. I know I won't be here tomorrow evening, but during lunch I have a surprise for you. Okay? Jiro said. A surprise? Sure thing then, Midoriya said, feeling all of his pressure and anxiety wash away at once. As he left the room, Jiro sighed, and then smiled. I'm glad that's over with. Too bad I can't spend tomorrow with him, Jiro said, picking up her notebook to sketch out more lyrics. Later that evening, when everyone was back in their own rooms for the night, one of the students shoved as many items as they could into their bag, as part of their last-minute preparations for tomorrow's sleepover. The last item she placed into the bag was a small mirror, which showed her pink hands, as she put it in the bag. This time tomorrow, they won't call me Pinky or Alien Queen. Tomorrow I'll forever be known as the matchmaking hero. In the blink of an eye, the morning had passed, and it was time for lunch for Class 1A. Midnight dismissed them from the classroom, and the 20 students sprinted towards the cafeteria, all hungry not only for lunch, but also for the weekend. After all, it was Friday, and they would only have one more class after lunch. The 6 girls trailed behind the boys, all too busy discussing their plans for that night. It was the only thing they could think about all day long. Yay! We will get to Yamamo's soon, Hagakure said. Yeah. Aren't you excited, Jirou? Ishido said, turning towards her. Of course I am. It'll be a lot of fun, I'm sure, Jirou said. And Yayorozu is rich, so that means lots of food and space, Hagakure said, causing Yayorozu to give a nervous laugh. Well, it's all about having fun, so let's not get too caught up in the logistics of things, Yayorozu replied. You know, we hang out all the time after class, and all, but this is the first time we get to truly be away together, Uraraka added. That makes it even more exciting, Ribbit Ajri said. Hey now, we only have a limited amount of time for lunch, so let's discuss later after we get our food, Yayorozu said. Hearing about food and lunch reminded Jirou of what she had planned to do, although the excitement of the sleepover had distracted her. After she got her lunch from Lunch Rush, she left the girls, and went over to a small table that only had one person sitting there, Midoriya. Hey Izuku, Jirou said. Kyouka, ready for today's hero class? And what's that surprise you were talking about? Midoriya asked. Jirou sat down with Midoriya at the table across from him. There's the Izuku I know. Of course I'm ready for the heroics class, although it sounds like it'll only be a lecture, which is boring. But lectures are so informative. You can learn so much from listening to our teachers, especially Aizawa-sensei. You sound like Ilda right now, Jirou said with a giggle. Even you have to admit that training is way more fun than lectures. Well, sure, but I still enjoy lectures too. Anyways, what's the surprise? Midoriya asked. Jirou fumbled for something in her pockets, only prompting more confusion from Midoriya. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Have you ever been to a concert before? Jirou said. A concert? I don't think so. Why? Surprised, Jirou said, as she slid 2 tickets across the table towards him. It says Deep Dope? Just minutes down the street from here, and it's next week too. Wow, this is so incredible. But are you sure you want me to come along with you? Jirou smirked after seeing his reaction. It was exactly how she had envisioned it. There's your self-doubt again, Green. Of course I want you, and only you, to come along with me. Just the 2 of us. The only 2 Deep Dope fans in this entire school, probably. You did invite me along for that All Might convention, after all. I'm honored. I can't wait. Thank you so much, Midoriya responded. The 2 of them chowed down on their meals, discussing different Deep Dope songs, along with Jirou suggesting certain songs that Midoriya had not listened to yet. She also gave him some pointers regarding what going to a concert entailed, which prompted him to scribble down notes in his notebook. How cute can he be? And it's not even hero-related, Jirou thought to herself. Hey Deku, Jirou! The 2 of them looked up to see Uraraka and Ilda hovering over them, with Ilda saluting them with his awkward trademark pose. Midoriya could have sworn he heard someone snort in the background. Oh hey Uraraka. I'm looking forward to the sleepover tonight, Jirou said. Me too. Speaking of which, Deku, I won't be around tonight since I'll be at Yayorozu all night. Sorry, Uraraka said. That means we'll have to hold down the fort together, Midoriya. A boys' night, if you will, Ilda said. Yeah, sounds like fun. I'll see you over the weekend, Uraraka, so don't even worry about it, Midoriya said. Alright, great. See you later, Deku, Uraraka said in a lower voice, as she and Ilda left the table. Moments later, the bell rang. It was the end of the lunch period, so Midoriya cleaned up his trash, along with Jirou's. Thanks, Green. So I'll talk about the concert more tomorrow since I have to leave right away after this last class, alright? Jirou said. Midoriya dumped the garbage into the trash can, wiping his hands clean. Sure thing. I'm looking forward to hearing Deep Dope in person for the first time, especially on a date with you nonetheless. Yeah, talk about wait, did you just say date? Midoriya felt his entire body crumble into dust. It reminded him of the nightmares he had suffered from when he dreamed of Shigaraki placing his hand on his face. Numbness consumed his soul, as he tried to find any reasonable explanation as to why he had said the word date of all things. What date? Midoriya replied. Date. You just said the word date, Jirou said. I did. Well, maybe I was thinking of the wrong word, sorry. Must have been a slip of the tongue or something, Midoriya said. Oh. Well, see you later then. I'll text you this evening. The 2 parted ways since their lockers were on opposite sides of the building. While they would see each other in class, there would be no chance to talk to one another due to it being a lecture, especially from Aizawa of all teachers. But that was not what Jirou was worried about at this moment. What just happened? Is this a date? Does he want it to be a date? What if he doesn't actually want to go? What if I want it to be a date? Shockingly, Aizawa's lecture seemed to begin and end in mere minutes. Class was dismissed, and unfortunately for Jiro and Midoriya, they were unable to see each other since Jiro had to rush back to the dorms, while Midoriya was meeting with All Might in his office. Jiro was a rather light packer. She only needed a backpack for the one-night trip to the Yaoyorozu residence. There would be no space or time for her to practice any music, so she would simply have to consider the evening as a mental break. A few more moments passed, and she darted downstairs to join the girls in the lobby. She was the last to arrive, but their ride was still a few moments out from UA, anyways. Wait, what's our ride? Ajiri croaked. Is it one of those big coach buses? Hagakure said, wearing a normal outfit to signify her presence. Not quite, Yaoyorozu said. Wait, is that a limousine? Uraraka said. A long, black car parked on the UA campus. Uraraka, Ajiri, Yaoyorozu, Ashido, Hagakure, and Jiro all trekked over and crawled into the expensive car. This is the nicest car I've ever been in. It's nice of you to rent this car for us, Yaoyorozu, Uraraka said. Thank you, although my family actually owns this particular vehicle. I am glad you find it comfortable, Yaoyorozu said. Once they were all aboard, the limo took off and made it to Yaoyorozu's house in about 15 minutes. Once they arrived, several butlers jogged out onto the winding driveway and picked up all the luggage from the 5 guests. My parents are currently away, so we'll have the house to ourselves. We'll still have our normal staff and meals though, so it won't be much different than normal, Yaoyorozu said. This place is a mansion, Uraraka screamed, not knowing where to focus her eyes first. Yaoyorozu is stupid filthy rich, Hagakure said. Yeah, so rich. Ashido jumped up and down. Please, it's just where I live, Yaoyorozu said. While the others were in awe, Jiro also took in the sights surrounding her. Knowing how Yaoyorozu felt about situations like these, she declined to mention anything about it. Besides, something else was echoing in her mind. Date? Is it whispered? Jiro? Are you okay? Ajiri said. What? Oh yeah, thanks, Jiro said. Ajiri stared at her for a second or two. Come on, the others are going inside. If we lose track of Yaoyorozu, we might be lost for the night. After entering the house, and after going through what felt like 20 different rooms, they arrived at what appeared to be the biggest room yet. It was a wide, open room with high ceilings, which created an echo for even the quietest noises. There were white columns and humongous windows surrounding the perimeter of the room. In the center of the room was a long table, with chairs that looked like thrones. This place is incredible, Uraraka said. Are those futons on the floor ribbit? Ajiri asked. On one end of the room lay 6 futons in a circle-like manner. Yaoyorozu led the others over to observe them further. Indeed, that is where we will be sleeping tonight. Oh, thank you again for spending the night, everyone. As classmates aspiring to become heroes, I believe it is important to be on good terms with one another, Yaoyorozu said. Sure, Hagakure said, as she dove onto one of the futons. Of course, Uraraka said with stars in her eyes. I agree, here's to a fun night, ribbit, Ajiri said. Oh, it'll be fun alright, girls' night. Ashido smirked. Yep, Jiro murmured. Meanwhile, back at UA's campus, 14 students sat or stood in the common room area, all having the same realization at once. So where are all the girls? Kirashima asked. The women have all gone over to Yaoyorozu's house for a one-night retreat. They will be back tomorrow morning, Ilda asked. What's a retreat? Kaminari asked. It's just a sleepover, don't mind Ilda's formal terms, Midoriya asked. One of the boys then grunted, prompting the others to all turn and stare at him. He looked downwards at the floor in a defeated manner. No girls? Mineta asked. That's correct, Mineta, Midoriya said. No Yaoyorozu, Ashido, Uraraka, Ajiri or Hagakure, damn back, Mineta screamed, as Jiro smacked Mineta's shoulder with his tail. Have some dignity, man. No one appreciates your creepy behavior, Jiro responded, with the others nodding in agreement. Which means, Kaminari said, looking at Kirishima. Boys' night, Kirashima yelled, as the others all cheered minus Mineta. Everyone then frantically began screaming their ideas for the evening. Each idea sounded louder than the last, as no one was willing to accept someone else's idea. Ilda waved his arms in an attempt to conduct things in an orderly fashion, which only caused more chaos. Finally, the one person who had not yet interjected snarled. Enough! Shut up! Bakugo yelled. That caught the attention of every single person in the room. You people seriously got accepted into UA's hero course? Just shut up, and give your ideas one by one, idiots, Bakugo said. Bakugo does have a point, Tokoyami nodded. Hey, why don't I go bake something for us all? Sato suggested. Great idea! Who's next? Ilda said. Well, I have an idea, Todoroki said. Listen for that voice, Todoroki whispered. The 14 boys minus Sato, who was baking in the kitchen, all sat on mats in their dorm's common room area, lined up in rows. Todoroki was in the front of the room, facing towards them in a teacher-like fashion. Everyone closed their eyes. Everything was silent. They focused on breathing. Inhale, hold. Exhale, hold. Inhale, hold. Focus. This is so fucking dumb. Bakugo yelled, disturbing his fellow meditators. Bakugo, Ilda said. Can it for eyes? Why are we meditating in the middle of a Friday afternoon? Hell, why are we even meditating at all? Bakugo said. He then looked straight at Todoroki with a piercing glare. Is this what you do for fun, half and half bastard? Sure, I guess. Meditation is something I have always done, Todoroki responded. I'm out of here. If anyone wants to hang out with me, come to my room, Bakugo said, as he stomped out of the common room area. Everyone else remained quiet, and a few of them even kept their eyes shut, and continued to meditate, including Midoriya. Inhale. Exhale. He visualized his brain going from constant movement to stillness. Inhale. Exhale. I wonder if Kyouka ever meditates, he thought to himself. He quickly cleared the thought, as he remembered the task at hand. While Midoriya continued on, Kaminari, Kirashima, Jiro, Mineta, and Aoyama left their mats. They were all headed upstairs to Bakugo's room. That left Midoriya, Tokoemi, Ilda, Jiro, Shiji, and Koda to undergo Todoroki's meditation session. And for Midoriya, the meditation was the most relaxing and peaceful experience he had endured in months. Hide and seek, really? Yaoyorozu said. Yes. 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 Your house is so freaking big, because you're stupid filthy rich, Hagakure said. It'll be so much fun, Yamamo, Ashido said. Fine. But Hagakure, you cannot take off your clothes and become fully invisible like you do in battle. That would be considered cheating, Yaoyorozu pointed out, leading to the girls nodding in agreement. Darn, actually, I guess that makes it fair. Fien, Hagakure responded. So, who's gonna be the seeker? Jiro asked. All 6 girls stared at each other with blank expressions. It did not matter what the time or occasion was, no one wanted to be the seeker. Ooh, I know. You should be the seeker since you brought it up. Ashido giggled. Wait, what? Oh, okay, fine. Whatever, Jiro said while shaking her head. Jiro then closed her eyes and counted from 1 to 60. While a full minute may have been seen as a lot for a hide-and-seek game, it was needed since the house was so big. Had it only been 15 seconds, no one would have even escaped the main room in time. 58, 59, 60, you better be ready. Are you ready? What's that phrase you say after you count? Whatever, Jiro said. As she opened her eyes, Jiro was immediately overwhelmed. Which way should she go? What was the layout of the house? This is going to take all night. I should have kept my freaking mouth shut, Jiro yelled. Where would Izuku look first? He'd probably mutter some genius plan to himself. There was no time to waste, however. She left the main room, and went down one of the many hallways in the house, only to find several rooms to enter. She chose to go to the room to her left. It was an indoor garden room that had many plants, flowers, and vegetables growing across several patches of soil. The walls of the room were made entirely of glass, which gave adequate sunlight to all of the plants. An indoor garden, what a house, Jiro said. It's just a room for some exotic plants and flowers. It's one of our hobbies, so to speak, Yaoyorozu said. Oh rats. I was supposed to stay quiet and hide. I should have paid more attention to what Yaoyorozu said. Well, since I found you, you can help me look for the others, and since it's your house, you'll be able to help me figure out the layout too, Jiro said in a relieved manner. I am more than happy to help, but the layout should not be too difficult to. Yamamo, your house is huge. I have no idea where to go, Jiro said. Well, you do have a point. Follow me. When Jiro had begun to count, Uraraka immediately sprinted down the closest hallway she could find. Hallway after hallway led to room after room, rooms that were bigger than her entire house even, but there was no time to be in awe. She had to find the perfect hiding spot, and she then zeroed in on that very spot. She crawled behind a pot that held soil, and a fake tree, causing her to bump her elbow on the gray bricks of a fireplace on the red wall. After figuring out how to hide herself entirely behind the pot, she knelt onto the spotless black carpet, and ducked her head. Although she wanted to take a sigh of relief, she knew she had to remain quiet to avoid being found by Jiro. Hey, Uraraka! She did not twitch a muscle. Uraraka. Wait, that's not Jiro's voice. That's Ashido? Ashido was behind a white pillar in the corner of the room, although she did reposition herself to create eye contact with Uraraka. Hey, I know we're playing hide and seek, but there's no way Jiro is going to find this room out of all the 100 rooms in this house, Ashido said. True, wait, how did you end up in the same room with me then? Did you follow me or something? Uraraka asked. Totally didn't. Oh, speaking of Jirou, Ashido giggled. You do remember the deal we made back at school, right? Yeah. I do. And? Well, you're gonna help me make Jiro admit that she likes Midoriya tonight, Ashido said. There's no way that she likes him. Besides, I don't think there's a way to force her to admit something, you know. Oh, but there is a way. Many ways. Many ways that I've thought of. And many ways that involve you helping me. And remember, I know who you like too, you know, Ashido smirked. That darn Ashido, she really is a great planner, Uraraka muttered while looking down to the floor. Ashido then took a step closer to Uraraka. I can't hear you, Mrs. Midoriya, Ashido yelled. Ashido, we'll be found if you yell. Oh right, my bad. Anyways, here's plan A, Ashido continued. You know what, Todoroki? Midoriya asked. The two of them, along with Tokoemi, rolled up the group's mats from the meditation session, including those who had left early to go to Bakugo's room. Ilda, Jiro, Shuji, and Koda had also left later on to enjoy the freshly baked cake that Sato had prepared. Despite Midoriya's question, Todoroki did not respond. Todoroki? Midoriya repeated. Oh, Midoriya, Todoroki said. Are you good? I was deep in thought, sorry. They picked up the last of the mats, and stored them away in a closet near the corner of the room. Afterwards, Todoroki sat on a couch in the same room, and turned on the television. As Tokoemi left the room to head to the kitchen for dessert, Midoriya stopped, and turned around. Sato's cake is ready now, Todoroki. Do you want some? No thank you. Todoroki zoned in on the television, which was a Japanese evening news program. The headline on the screen read Kai Chisaki among several from the show Hosaikai Arrested. Several clips of several villains being led out of the building with handcuffs on then played. Each person looked down towards the ground, refusing to acknowledge the cameras, as they were loaded into a van. That was a pretty big criminal organization. It's a good thing they were stopped, Midoriya said. Definitely. I've been following them for a while now. Every top leader they had was arrested, so they'll probably disband now, Todoroki said. And that Chisaki, that would absolutely suck to fight against him with his crazy quirk. But I would've if I needed to, Midoriya nodded while clenching his fists. Same here. The less evil there is, the better, Todoroki said. I wonder what Kyouka would think of him. Hey, it seems like Todoroki is more conversational now too. Midoriya decided to forego having cake, and sat down next to Todoroki. Are you doing anything over the weekend? Midoriya asked. Nothing different than normal. It should be pretty quiet. How about you? I'll probably study. And study. And study more. Oh yeah, I'm going to a concert with Kyouka next week too. Midoriya grinned. He closed his eyes to envision what it was like to be at a concert. And he had no problem admitting that it had occupied his mind during the hero course class earlier that day, as well. A concert, huh? I've never been to one. And you said you're going with Jirou? Todoroki asked. Yeah, her idea too. She's really awesome, you know. Midoriya began to blush a tad. Oh okay. So this is another date then, huh? What do you mean by that? Todoroki blankly stared while Midoriya fidgeted, and blushed even harder. While his skills in battle, and his burning desire to save others was undeniable, his poker face left plenty of room for improvement. Oh, am I wrong? I've just seen you two hang out together quite a bit recently. Midoriya paused. Thoughts swirled in his brain, as he pondered what the correct thing to say was. If he said yes, that would be a lie, since they had never been on an actual date. If he said no, the words from earlier that day rang in his ears. I'm looking forward to hearing Deep Dope in person for the first time, especially on a date with you nonetheless, he said. Yeah, talk about wait, did you just say date? Jiro responded. Are you okay? Todoroki said in response to Midoriya's prolonged silence. I don't know. You don't know? Everything is just so confusing, Midoriya said in defeat. You need to spend more time in the dark, my friend. And have some cake. Cake makes everything better, a new voice interjected. The two looked up to see Tokoemi re-enter the room. It was as if he had joined them on K, as the sun was beginning to set through the windows behind him, which caused the sky to get darker, and darker by the minute. He held 2 plates of yellow cake in his hands, topped off with whipped cream, and rainbow sprinkles. He set the 2 plates on the table in front of Midoriya, and Todoroki respectively, and then sat to Midoriya's right. So, what are you unsure about? How to take your quirk to the next level? How to study for the exam on Monday in English class? How to utilize the dark? Tokoemi added. No, it's nothing like that. I'd probably be better off leaving, honestly, Todoroki said, as he stood up from the couch. Midoriya then stuck his arm out, and motioned for Todoroki to stop. Wait, please hear me out on this. Todoroki nodded, and sat down, albeit the uncomfortableness of the situation for him. Here's what happened, and honestly it's probably stupid. But at lunch, Kyouka surprised me with tickets to this concert, and I was really excited. I've never been to one, but I've always wanted to attend one, so it's all I could think about. As we were leaving, I called it a date by complete accident, and she was surprised that I called it a date. But I explained that I didn't mean to say that, and then she left. That's why I said I don't know, Todoroki, Midoriya said. As soon as he finished speaking, he looked over to Todoroki and Tokoyami. They both gave him absolutely dumbfounded expressions, causing Midoriya to only cringe even more. Holy shit, I know you love to analyze heroes and all, but do you actually overthink about everything? Tokoyami asked. What he said, Todoroki nodded. Midoriya bowed his head in defeat. I knew I should have kept my stupid mouth shut yet again. You really do need to embrace the dark more, my friend. Here's the deal. I'm not really into romance and stuff, but a date needs to be mutually agreed upon by both parties. Clearly, that wasn't the case here. Clearly, this was just a slip of the tongue by you. So I wouldn't even worry about it. I doubt Jiro even cares, Tokoyami said. What he said, Todoroki again added. Dang it. I overthink everything. I guess that's just how I'm wired. Thanks, you too, Midoriya said, as he finished the last licks of his cake. I've got to go get something from my room, but I'll be back in a second. Midoriya left the room and ran up the stairs to his dorm. After shutting the door, his brain finally began to melt, leading him to spit out every single thought he possibly had. So it's not a date. I overthink everything. Kyouka probably doesn't care. It was just a mistake on my part. That's great. But how can I ever actually ask her out on a date? Maybe that's not what she wants. Maybe she just thought I would want to go since no one else at UA likes deep dope. But still, I feel like we hang out way more than we did in the past. We're definitely really good friends, right? Midoriya sat down on his bed. He then remembered something that she had told him last night. Green, just be you. I like you a lot better when you just act like yourself. I wasn't kidding when I said you're awesome. I really do need to stop overthinking. No, I will stop overthinking. For Kyouka. I can't think about every little thing excessively. After changing shoes, he then got up from his bed and walked out to the hallway to head back downstairs. I wonder what Kyouka is up to right now, he muttered to himself while walking to the elevator. He turned on his phone and went to his text messaging app. I see you behind that plant, Azui, Jiro called out. Azui sidestepped from behind a pot of tall grass and saw the 4 other girls next to Jiro. Ashido was almost jumping up and down, while Uraraka did not move a muscle. Jiro, meanwhile, was just relieved that the hour-long game of hide and seek was over at last. Ribbit, does that mean I win? Azui asked. Indeed. You found a great spot, Yaoyorozu said. There were only 8,000 different rooms to choose from, Hagakure muttered. What was that? Yaoyorozu said. She asked when we were having dinner. We're starving. Right. Ashido interrupted. Ashido gave a wide-eyed glance towards Uraraka, although no one else noticed. Uraraka, feeling more like an actress than a friend, then sighed and answered Ashido. Yeah, so am I. What are we even having? Follow me to the dining room, Yaoyorozu said. As the girls departed the room following Yaoyorozu's lead, Jiro lagged back by a few footsteps. She was not really ready for dinner, but, as she learned through dorming at UA, compromising was the name of the game. Besides, this was bound to be one of the best meals she could possibly have considering Yaoyorozu's family had professional chefs in the house. A text message is here. A text message is here. Huh. Oh crap, Jiro said, reaching for her phone to silence it. While the others continued their trek, Ashido turned around and began walking backwards. Jiro did everything she could do to not make eye contact with her. Ashido, meanwhile, did everything she could do to not make her smirk too obvious. That's an interesting ringtone, Jiro. Interesting, Ashido repeated. Thanks, Jiro said. Sounds a lot like Midoriya's, if I'm not mistaken, Ashido said. Jiro remained silent, now choosing to look down towards her shoes. Uraraka's face lit up, as well, although she dared not to look towards them. The last thing she needed was for Ashido to call on her for assistance. We're almost there. Just a few more steps, Yaoyorozu said. Wait a minute, Jiro thought. Midoriya must have texted me. Hopefully he's okay. There's no way I can respond right now. Back at UA, the dorm building was now shaking from the flurry of activity from downstairs. Kirashima and Kaminari blared rock music at Bakugo's request. Sato continued to churn out snack after snack from the kitchen, and a few of the others played the official Pro Hero video game that Midoriya had shared with them. Friday nights were truly something to behold at UA now that everyone lived together. If Class B occupied the same building with Class A, well, the building itself might have crumbled by Saturday morning. While everyone else partied, Midoriya remained in his room. He laid in his bed without twitching a muscle. His eyes were glued to his phone in the otherwise dark room. There were 2 reasons why he chose to be away from the rest of the group. For one, he had found a new All Might interview that he just had to watch. And secondly, he awaited a response from Jiro. Some responses. Any response. But so far, nothing. They must be having a good time at Izuku, Midoriya said. Midoriya then heard a knock on his door. He paused the video, rolled out of bed, and turned on the light. Midoriya, why are you cooped up in your dinky room right now? Kirashima asked. Oh, sorry Kirashima, I just need to unwind. I've been thinking about stuff, that's all, Midoriya said. Alright man, but you know where we are. Well, besides Ilda, Kirashima said. Where's Ilda at? In his room. He was down with us earlier, but he said he needed to study. Ah, okay. As the conversation fizzled out, the two parted ways, with Midoriya returning to his bed to continue watching the interview. It was exactly what he needed after a long, stressful week at UA. A few more steps? We went through, like, 100 rooms to get to your dining room, Hagakure said. Well, we are here now, so that is all that matters. Anyways, sit wherever you would like. Our servers will arrive with our dinner shortly, Jirou said. The long table, covered with a red velvet tablecloth, had 3 chairs on each side. Jirou, Ashido, and Uraraka sat on one side, while IzuJirou and Hagakure sat across from them, respectively. Ashido then bumped Uraraka's knee. They made eye contact, and without anyone noticing, Ashido mouthed Plan A to her. Uraraka gave a quick, hesitant nod in response. Then, the servers arrived carrying multiple dishes that were covered. Ms. Jirou and company, your meal is ready. After all the dishes were placed on the table, each was uncovered one by one. And, as each dish was revealed, the guests' eyes grew wider and wider. Jirou, meanwhile, remained unfazed, and nodded, as she saw each item. Here it is. Wagyu beef, and your vegetables of choice, Ms. Jirou. May we serve each of your plates now? The head server said. Please, thank you very much, Jirou replied. The guest had no idea what to even say. A simple thank you, to them would not nearly express their sincere level of gratitude. Yet they also knew that for Jirou, this was a typical day in her life. Thank you so much, Jirou, ribbit, Azui said, as fast as possible, with the others mimicking her. As the group began to dine, Ashido tapped her foot, trying to find the best way to start a conversation. Everyone was so inundated by the meal that there was absolute silence. Uraraka could tell Ashido was about to explode, yet there was no way she was going to be the one to begin Plan A. Ashido held all the cards she just had to make the first play. Hey Uraraka, you told me something earlier that was really interesting, Ashido said. Perhaps while you were hiding, considering Jirou, and I found you about 5 seconds apart? Jirou said. Look at you, Jirou, so intelligent. So tell Uraraka. Ashido continued. Uraraka had no idea how to even start her line. She felt 5 pairs of eyes on her though, as they had somehow been distracted from their food. If it had not been for her nerves, Uraraka would have still been awestruck by the high-quality meal the house chefs prepared. Could you give me a reminder of what you're trying to say? Uraraka asked. Ashido pouted. Uraraka nearly fell out of her chair. My quirk, I mean, your theory about my quirk, Ashido answered. Oh, right. How could I forget? So, don't freak out. But I think Ashido actually has a mind-reading quirk, Uraraka rattled out. Oh, really? Why do you think that's the case? Hagakure asked. Well, I just noticed some things that she said, and how, you need to be a mind reader to think like she does, Uraraka said. Jirou gave the two of them a confused and unamused look. Jirou was intrigued, while Azui and Hagakure were both spooked. A me mind reader ribbit? Azui said. Azui, you sound awfully worried that Ashido might know your thoughts, Hagakure said. It's not that ribbit. I just think a mind reading quirk could be really helpful, as a hero, Azui said. Well, why don't I try it out to prove it to you? I'll read Uraraka's thoughts first, Ashido said. Uraraka nodded. Everything was going according to plan. Maybe if the whole hero thing did not work out, they could try being professional actresses. No. This is just ridiculous. Uraraka is clearly in on your deal, and no matter what you say, she'll agree with you that you read her mind, Jirou said, trying her best to not roll her eyes at them. Jirou does bring up a good point. It would be difficult to prove you're actually a mind reader, Jirou said. Ashido snapped her left fingers underneath the table, while placing her right fingers underneath her chin. Good thing Plan A isn't our only plan, Ashido thought. Ashido wanted to look over to Uraraka to give her the signal to drop Plan A, but with all eyes on them, it would be far too obvious to do such a thing. She hoped that Uraraka was witty enough like her to go with the flow. Alright, good point. How about I read your mind instead, Jirou? Ashido said. Why not? Go ahead. What am I thinking right now? Jirou asked. Ashido readjusted her right hand to have her thumb, an index finger beneath her chin. She stared right at Jirou, trying to deduce what the host was thinking. While she might have not been an actual mind reader capable of knowing her exact thoughts, She didn't know her well enough to at least have some idea of what she could be thinking about. It would all come down to a lucky prediction. Right now, Momo Yaoyorozu is thinking about whether her guests are enjoying dinner. She's also calculating the amount of food she still needs to consume to maximize her quirk's ability, Ishido said, hoping her plans would not be foiled. Huh! That's exactly what I was thinking. How did you know? Yaoyorozu asked. I'm Mina Ishido, the mind reader, that's how. Maybe I should have made that my hero name, eh? Ishido said while full of relief. Azuri and Hagakure were stunned at Ishido's mind reading. Although Azuri originally had her doubts, she was starting to believe her claim was true after all. Uraraka was also stunned, although for different reasons. Ishido's lucky guess did not make her believe she was an actual mind reader, but she was impressed by her friend's quick thinking. Ishido then looked over to Jirou. Ishido's adrenaline drained instantly, as she saw Jirou's expression. There's no actual way any of you believe Ishido actually read Yamamo's mind. I mean, come on, even I knew that Yaoyorozu was thinking about those things. Jirou said. If you're so insistent that I'm a fraud, Jirou, how about I read your mind next? You aren't scared if I see what's on your mind, right? Ishido said with a grin. Uraraka tried her best to not change her facial expression. She refused to be the reason for this plan failing. Blackmail or not, there was no way she wanted her crush on Midoriya to be revealed. Scared? Ha, gimme a break. Go ahead, and read my mind, alien queen, Jirou said with as much sarcasm as possible. Just like she had done with Yaoyorozu, Ishido stared right at Jirou. Jirou then made a slight glance downwards before returning to their eye contact. This time, however, Ishido closed her eyes after a few seconds. After a quick nod, she opened them, and prepared to deliver the verdict. Right now, Kyouka Jirou is thinking about the wagyu beef on her plate, because she's trying to trick me, Ishido said. Wait, what? That's what I was actually thinking about. What the heck? Jirou said. Ishido then noticed Jirou's face had a slight pink tint. Jirou then twirled her right earphone jack, and tried her best to avoid any contact with Ishido. A blink, and a nod later, Ishido stood up, pressed her hands against the table, and made an exaggerated gasp. Oh my goodness! Kyouka Jirou likes Izuku Midoriya! Ishido yelled in the loudest voice she could possibly make. Jirou's eyes widened. Her mouth opened, wanting to say a sentence that began with the word what, but it was frozen on the motion of the first syllable. The color of the red velvet tablecloth would not even be an apt comparison as to how flushed her face became. With hands shaking, Jirou tried her best to stand up to counter, but her body refused to obey her brain. Emotionally, she was red-hot, but physically, she was frozen. Between their previous conversations with Jirou regarding Midoriya, and her reaction to Ishido's claim, both Yaoyorozu and Azuri knew what was going on instantly. They both remained as silent as they could be, though. Hagakure was bouncing up and down from her chair upon learning of the now open secret. Ishido continued to smirk, as she enjoyed watching Jirou's reaction to her long-suspected matchmaking claim. After all of her hard detective work, she could not help but feel pure joy over the matter. Love was the reason she kept going in life. Mina Ishido had cracked yet another crush. If you could excuse me, I needed to use the restroom. Jirou finally stumbled out, rolling out of her chair to exit the dining room. Jirou had no clue where the restroom even was. She just had to get out of there. Anywhere would have been better than that dining room at this moment. While everything unfolded before her, Uraraka sat motionless. It was true. It was all true. Mina Ishido had correctly proven another case. Kyouka Jirou felt her entire body go numb. She could not bear to recall anything that had occurred after Ishido's remarks. Somehow, someway, she was now in a large hallway. The only reason she knew the dining room was nearby was from the shouting she heard, although the words were muffled. She chose to sit against the wall after a few moments, her brain swirling yet silent. How did this ever happen? It was the first clear sentence she recalled saying after leaving the room. As much as she wanted to ignore it, she was still shaking, even after several minutes had passed. Was Mina Ishido actually a mind reader? Did she somehow deceive everyone all this time? Or maybe Uraraka figured it out, and kept it a secret from the rest of Class 1A? But still, why would Ishido reveal her full quirk over something like this? She's not a fucking mind reader. She can't be. She can't be. She's just a blabbermouth that can't mind her own business. Jirou's shaking slowly subsided. She pounded her fist onto the wall behind her. The one and only secret she kept was now common knowledge amongst all her friends. Wait a minute. Jirou then envisioned the conversation again. From Uraraka's claim, to Ishido's mind reading of Yaoyorozu, and then of course, Ishido revealing Jirou's crush. Did I not even deny it? Did I just accept it from the start like an idiot? What was I doing? I'm so ugh. Jirou then heard the words of Aizawa ring in her head. Honesty, focus, instinct. Ha! I can't even follow sensei's advice. What a joke. Remembering she had received a text from Midoriya earlier, she decided to look at the message instead of ranting. Perhaps Midoriya said something that would be perfect for the moment. Izuku Midoriya. Hey Kyouka, hope you're enjoying yourself. The dorm's pretty crazy right now, but everyone's good. Jiro sat and stared at the message. Enjoying herself? More like torturing herself. And it was through no fault of her own. Society sucks. Why is everyone so embarrassed about who they like? Why am I like this? Jiro then typed a quick reply to him. Kyouka Jirou. Everything's great. Right. As Jiro had left the dining room moments ago, Yaoyorozu, Ajiri, Uraraka, and Hagakure all remained seated. They looked up to Ashido, still standing from before, but her grin had disappeared. She wore an expressionless look on her face. Even her body language was nonchalant at most. Ashido, Yaoyorozu said. Ashido then screamed, and jumped up and down, pumping her arms above her head. She sprinted around the dining room, and cartwheeled into a trademark break dance routine, going on, as if her energy would never run out. At last, she came to a stop, and walked back over to the table. How would Ashido put her emotions into words? I'm Mina Ashido, the matchmaking hero. I knew it. It was so obvious, and Jiro's reaction was so funny. That girl can't hide her feelings to save her life. Wasn't that absolutely hilarious? Ashido yelled, and afterwards broke into a hysterical laugh, as she replayed Jiro's reaction in her head. You really are the best, Ashido. I admit, I was growing suspicious of Jiro for spending all those lunches with Midoriya instead of us girls, but you were the only one bold enough to expose her feelings. Hagakure chimed in. Ajiri fidgeted in her chair before making a small rib bit. Yaoyorozu had no idea how to react. Despite that, Uraraka was by far the most distraught of them all. She could not believe Jiro actually had feelings for Midoriya. She thought for sure that by doing this, Jiro would laugh in Ashido's face, and put an end to her accusations, and Uraraka would be free. Oh, how she wished that was the case. You never said you were gonna say Jiro liked Deku in front of us all, Uraraka whimpered. Well, if I recall correctly, I said that was not plan A. Once Jiro figured our plan out, all bets were off. So I'm sorry things didn't go exactly as planned, Uravity. But it's mission accomplished. As far as I'm concerned, Ashido said. Uraraka slammed her hands on the table, and stood up. Ajiri tried to put her hands up, but it was too late. Mission accomplished? What are you talking about? You told me we were going to corner Jiro when we played darts later so she would only tell you how she felt about Deku. You never said you were going to embarrass her. She literally couldn't even speak when she left the room. Uraraka said. Yeah, and it was fucking hilarious too. That should have been plan A all along. So you were trying to embarrass her? Uraraka interrupted. Jiro would get embarrassed if you said the slightest compliment to her. That girl blushes over anything. It's not my fault that. Are you actually serious? Do you even hear yourself? You want to be a hero, yet you take pleasure in a classmate or friend being ashamed over how they feel? Ribbit, please stop. Ajiri then interjected, finally standing up now after shaking off the shock. Jiro would never in a million years admit she liked Midoriya on her own terms. It's not like it's gonna harm her that us girls know. It's not like I forced her to fess up to him. Yeah, Ashido didn't do shit, Uraraka. Don't get all high and mighty on us, Hagakure said. Uraraka opened her mouth, but instead of speaking, she turned around. Just as Jiro had done, she left the dining room and entered the hall. I'm glad Kyouka is good, Midoriya said. I mean, obviously she would be okay considering how strong she is, but still. Her quick truly is incredible. After pausing the All Might interview that was nearly finished, Midoriya rambled under his breath about Jiro's quirk and battle style. The words kept flowing for him, as they often did. It was all the more easier considering the subject at hand, too. Eventually, Midoriya stopped to gasp for oxygen, and laughed to himself. Kyouka special alright. No wonder I'm in love with her love? Midoriya raised his voice. Right upon his realization, he again heard knocking his door. Can't these people leave me alone for one night? Midoriya chuckled to himself. Despite his frustration, he opened the door to see Ilda on the other side. Oh, hello Midoriya. I was wondering if you could help me with a question on the English homework? Ilda said. Sure, why not? Midoriya replied. He figured it would help take Jiro off his mind for now. A few hours had passed. Midoriya had answered all of Ilda's questions. The partying began to quiet down in the Class 1A dorm, and things were mellow over at the Yaoyorozu house. Yaoyorozu, Ajiri, and Hagakure enjoyed a rather quiet game of darts in one of the large recreation rooms of the house. Uraraka was also with them, although she opted to not play, with none of her classmates choosing to question her. Ashido was in a bedroom by herself, squirming not only from her earlier success, but also out of boredom for being banished for the night. Why do you think Ishido did that? Ajiri said. What do you mean, Ajiri? Yaoyorozu said. Why did Ishido want to embarrass Jiro so badly? She only ruined things for herself, Ajiri responded. I mean, was she in the wrong though? All she did was ask a simple question that she was curious about. It's not her fault Jiro doesn't know how to hold a poker face, Hagakure said. Poker face, ribbit? Ajiri asked. A neutral expression. But still, asking other people sensitive questions like that is quite out of line, Yaoyorozu clarified. While Hagakure took her turn throwing darts, Uraraka sat motionless. Competition for Deku? Would he really choose Jiro over me? Would he even choose either of us? What am I gonna do? Uraraka thought. Ha, bullseye! Hagakure yelled, interrupting her thought process. With an answer from Jiro, only came more questions for Uraraka. While they continued their game, Jiro was back in the dining room, eating her reheated dinner by herself. She continued to reflect on the situation at hand, as she ate. There was no going back now. Whether she could have handled the situation better or not did not matter. All that mattered now was how to navigate it. Damage control was the name of the game for her. One of these days, Ishido will shut her mouth. One day. But not today, Jiro said. Jiro then sat still, pondering over all of the future implications from the matter at hand. Her feelings for Midoriya were now known by all of the girls of Class 1A. That included Ishido and Hagakure. Surely, she figured, they would not keep their mouths shut about it forever. It was all out of her control at this point. Or is it? Jiro then whispered. Maybe if I just... She nearly jumped out of her chair, as she saw a shadow from outside the doorway. All Jiro could do was beg the universe for it to be anyone, but Ishido. Even a villain would be better to deal with right now than Ishido. Looking down at her nearly empty plate, Jiro waited for a voice to begin speaking. But the only thing breaking the deafening silence was footsteps. Once the footsteps went silent too, she peered up. An expressionless Uraraka stared at Jiro from the doorway. Hey, Jiro offered. Hi. Uraraka crept over to the dining room table, and sat across from Jiro. While Jiro finished her meal, Uraraka tapped her thumbs together. Jiro was too embarrassed to even consider monologuing the situation with someone else in front of her. So, we all knew Ishido has no respect for others' privacy. But who knew she was a mind reader too? Jiro quipped. Oh yeah, Uraraka murmured. Quite fitting for a person like her. Jiro managed to fake a laugh. Look, Jiro, Uraraka interjected, finally finding her voice again. I'm sorry about what happened. Blame me, not Ishido. I'm the one that should have stopped this before it even started. Jiro tapped her now empty plate, and gave a look to Uraraka, a look that neither of them could interpret. Regardless, the uncomfortableness of the situation continued to rise with every word, with every gaze, and with every tap. Go on, Jiro decided to add. Ishido threatened to blackmail me if I didn't go along with her plan. She said she was going to accuse you once the two of you were alone. But, what plan? You didn't even do anything. Don't take the blame for someone like her, Jiro interrupted. Uraraka gulped. Maybe she should have stayed back with the others, and played darts. Right now, she felt like a directionless dart in this conversation. I was following her lead. I just feel guilty because that's not what she told me she was going to do. I would have stopped her if I knew that's what she actually planned on doing, Uraraka said. Okay, but it's Mina Ishido. She can't do anything that involves patience or silence to save her life. I'm still confused why you feel guilty though, Jiro said. I should have told her to drop it from the start. I was too weak since she threatened to blackmail me. And, blackmail? What dirt could she possibly have on you that you're worried about? Jiro again interrupted. She was getting impatient with the circular conversation. Uraraka sat in silence. If it has to do with how you like Izuku too, don't worry. That's the only open secret bigger than my own crush, Jiro said while twirling her right jack. What? A flushed Uraraka managed to say. Come on, we all know. Even Ajiri figured it out, and she's the last person to care about romance, Jiro added. Wait, Deku doesn't know, does he? Uraraka asked, not even caring about the fact Jiro somehow knew. Of course he doesn't. Not that I know of, anyways, Jiro said. Well, I guess the two of us, like Deku now, Uraraka joked in a rather regretful way. My Neto would be jealous of that. Jiro shook her head, and sighed. My Neto was the last person she wanted to think about at that moment. Well, besides Mina Ishido. Listen, don't feel guilty. I'm not mad at you. I'm absolutely livid at Ishido, but things will work out. Somehow I guess, Jiro said, finally beginning to look at the optimistic side of things. Sure, but I have one question. Yeah? Does Deku know how you feel about him? Uraraka rushed to ask. Jiro sat back. Deep down, she knew the real reason Uraraka was asking this. Nope. Not yet anyways. Uraraka blushed again. She nodded at Jiro, got up from her chair, and left the room. Jiro sighed. She figured it would come down to this at some point, but not quite in this manner. Looks like honesty, focus, and instinct are more important now than ever. I can't mess up again. I won't, Jiro told herself. To say the car ride home from the Yaoyorozu house back to UA was awkward would be an understatement. Everyone sat in silence. They were all tired from the lack of sleep, combined with the fact this was the first time Jirou and Ishido were in the same vicinity since dinner last night. Yaoyorozu wanted to say something, anything, to at least strike up a conversation. But nothing came to mind. No one was willing to bite. Ishido shuffled her feet a few times. She glanced over at Jirou, trying to initiate something, but it was to no avail. Jirou had one of her earphone jacks plugged into her phone to listen to music, anyways. Finally, Ishido decided to make her move. Jirou, Kenneth. If you really could read my thoughts, you wouldn't even try speaking to me, Jirou interrupted. No one dared to utter a word for the rest of the car ride after that. Gentlemen, the ladies have just arrived, Ilda reported, as he looked out the window. Moments later, the girls entered the room. Ilda, Kirashima, Siro, and Kaminari happened to be in the common area at the same time as their arrival. Each of them greeted the returning students, but all they got back were cold and quick hellos at best. Once they departed to their respective rooms, the boys gathered together and gave each other looks of confusion. That was odd, Kaminari said. Yeah man, like, they all seemed really quiet and stuff, Siro said. Do you think something happened between them? Kirashima asked. It is none of our business, gentlemen. If they choose to speak to us about the matter, then we can discuss it, Ilda said. While the boys continued their discussion downstairs, Jirou crashed onto her bed and laid in silence. This was it. They were back at UA, with her secret now being known. Whether she liked it or not, she would have to live with what had happened. Deep dope was the only consolation she had for the time being. I have English and math homework to do. And that dumb assignment about my quirk, too, Jirou finally mumbled. Finally growing tired of sulking, Jirou jumped off her bed and went over to her desk. She first completed her math assignment, which took about an hour. It was a nice way for her to take her mind off of everything, even if there was no pleasure in solving math problems. Right after that, she then knocked out the dumb assignment regarding her quirk within 5 minutes. Izuku would spend an entire day doing that assignment, Jirou laughed to herself. The word Izuku still made her heart flutter, although it was more because of the thought of him rather than Ishido's intrusiveness. Now that he was on her mind, she imagined how he would react if he learned what Ishido had done to her. And worse, what if Ishido tells Izuku shit? I need to talk to someone about this, but who could I possibly talk to? Jirou then finally got an idea. Hurrying to get up from her desk, Jirou ran around her room, as she reorganized everything after unpacking her bag from the sleepover. The English assignment would have to wait. But as soon as she was ready to leave her room, a nagging thought stalled her progress. Would Izuku really choose Uraraka over me? Oh Ilda, Uraraka, I imagine you had an excellent retreat? Ilda asked in response. The two of them were in the common area together with a few other members of Class 1A, including Jiro and Kirashima. Uraraka had joined them about half an hour after she had unpacked everything in her room. I need to ask you something, Ilda, but can we go outside? Uraraka asked. Sure thing. It's a beautiful day outside too, Ilda said. Bro, it's freezing out, Kirashima said, leading to a shrug from Ilda. After the two of them left the dorm building and headed towards the academic building, Uraraka finally felt comfortable enough to say what she wanted to ask. She motioned for Ilda to stop. Ilda, I don't know what Deku and you talk about, but does this question pertain to Midoriya? If so, maybe you should talk to him about it instead, Ilda interrupted. Well, it pertains to both of you I guess, Uraraka said. Ilda nodded without response, as if he approved Uraraka to carry on. Does Deku like anyone? And I mean like love, not friendship, Uraraka added, remembering the last time Ilda was questioned about romance. Uraraka, that is none of my business, but I can tell you Midoriya has never once talked about marriage and potential spouses with me. Uraraka could feel her face burn against the cold, crisp winter wind. I don't necessarily mean marriage, but I do understand what you mean. Love is related to figuring out who you want to marry. No? Ilda asked. You're right, I just didn't think about it like that. Thanks for your help. No problem, as your class president. As Ilda rambled on, Uraraka thought about who she could speak to next. Ilda was clearly not the correct answer for her. Jirou felt her heart flutter again, as she knocked on Midoriya's door. While it was not the first time she had stopped by, the awkward and uneasy feeling always remained for her for whatever reason. Kyouka, it's good to see you again. Midoriya greeted her. You too, Jirou said, as she took a quick step forward to place her hands around his back. Oh, Midoriya sputtered. What did I just do? Jiro thought to herself. Despite the initial shock, he returned the hug. His brain went silent in the moment. You're not scared of me hugging you, right? Jiro grinned while stepping back. Of course not. A flushed Midoriya responded. Good. Midoriya was unsure whether to smile or wince, but he was happy nonetheless. So the sleepover was good, right? Jiro paused to enter the room. Midoriya sat down on his bed, while Jiro dragged Midoriya's chair from his desk to be across from him. Jiro used the time to try to think of the word that best fit her experience. It was interesting for sure. It's good to be back, Jiro responded. I can't wait for the Deep Dope concert on Wednesday. Me too. It's the only thing I've been able to think about since yesterday. I just can't stop thinking about you, Midoriya said. Me with her? Jiro said, as eyes shot wide open. The two of them stared at each other. Jiro reached for her right jack, and twirled it. Midoriya stuffed his right hand in his pocket. Their thoughts swirled with endless possibilities, as to what would happen next. Both of them waited for either of them to be the one to break the ice. Yeah, I can't stop thinking about you, and how we're going to a concert together, Midoriya said. Like, I never thought I would fall in love with a band like I have with Deep Dope, and it's all thanks to you. I'm just so grateful. Jiro sat there dumbfounded. She had absolutely no idea how to respond to him. On the one hand, hearing how passionate he is about Deep Dope almost made me emotional, happy, but the way he said that thinking about me, no, it can't be, can it? Well, I've waited all my life to hear someone say they love Deep Dope. Not many students here at UA even listen to them, you know? So, thanks to the green Jiro, I stumbled out. Sure, they have great music, after all, Midoriya responded. Jiro found an excuse to break their eye contact by glancing around the room, looking at all of the All Might merchandise that surrounded them. She was still amazed that even after all of their time at UA, Midoriya was still so invested in All Might. In fact, she even noticed a few new figures since the last time she had been there. While just about every citizen had their favorite heroes that they looked up to, Jiro did not know anyone else who had a fandom like Midoriya's. And to think that in addition to being a hero fanatic, Midoriya was also one of the strongest students in the entire hero class. Izuku, Jiro said, straightening herself up. Kyouka? Midoriya said. Listen, I've just been wondering. I don't know how to say it. You can tell me anything, Kyouka, really. Okay, I'm not trying to invade your privacy or anything, but like, do you have a girlfriend? I don't care either way, you know, it's just that I've been curious, that's all, Jiro said while clutching onto her right jack. Midoriya's face burned the brightest blush he could possibly muster. A girlfriend? I've never even had a girlfriend, Midoriya yelled. Why do you want to know? I'm just curious. That's all, Jiro said. I'm single too. I guess everyone is single in 1A. What the actual fuck is going on? What am I doing? Why am I even asking him that? It's like I'm acting without thinking, Jiro thought. True, I'm kind of surprised no one's in a relationship here, honestly, Midoriya said while breaking eye contact. Jiro tapped the end of her jacks together in contemplation. She wondered who exactly would want to even be in a relationship in 1A to begin with, certainly not Ilda. Well, it was good catching up with you. I'd love to be with you, hang out with you all day, I meant, but I have some more studying to do, Jiro said. Yeah, I can only imagine, since you probably didn't even have time to study last night, Midoriya said, still flustered. Jiro finally broke eye contact with him. She pushed his chair back over to his desk, her thoughts swirling over everything that had just happened. How was she going to leave after all of that? Alright, I'll see you around, Jiro said, as she walked to the doorway between his room and the hall. And I'll be looking forward to our date on Wednesday. Right, as she said that, she slammed the door shut and sprinted down the hall, hurrying to leave his floor to get back to her room. Without even thinking a single word, she ran into her room, slammed her door shut, and locked it. Finally, the adrenaline caught up to her, and reality sat in. I really just did that, he's got to like me, he's got to, Jiro said while panting. What just happened? Finally, Jiro was able to register everything that had occurred. Midoriya said he could not stop thinking about her, falling in love with Deep Dope, asking if he was single, despite knowing he was obviously single, actually calling the concert a date. Jiro sat down on her bed, finally catching her breath. All she could imagine was Midoriya's reaction to everything she had said. When I'm around others, I get all tense and awkward, especially about Izuku, Jiro said, remembering how she reacted to Ishido at the sleepover. But when I'm with Izuku, I'm a whole different person. I actually feel confident. I can be my real self around him, Jiro said. She then remembered their hug. You're not scared of me hugging you, right? The words echoed in her ears. Am I flirting with him? I didn't even think I could do any of that. This is crazy. I've got to ask him out already. It's been long enough. I'll do it before the concert on Wednesday, but how? After a weekend full of crammed studying, Monday, and Tuesday flew by for all the students of Class 1A. Before they knew it, it was already Wednesday, which meant it was time for the concert for Midoriya and Jiro. The two of them shared the occasional greeting over the past few days, but had avoided talking too much to each other. Uraraka had been heading over to the school building earlier each day during this week. She had managed to talk to Bakugo, Yaoyorozu, and Azri regarding Midoriya, but she had learned no new information from them. Today was the earliest she had departed from the dorms yet, leaving despite there being at least 30 minutes until her first class began. "Hey Todoroki," Uraraka called out. Uraraka caught Todoroki's red and white hair of Todoroki's hair in the distance. A confused Todoroki changed course and walked over to his classmate. The two of them did not talk much, though there was no frostiness between them. "What's up?" Todoroki managed to ask. "I was just curious about something." "You and Deka talk a lot, right?" Uraraka said. "I mean, we have some conversations here and there," Todoroki said. "But go on." "Oh, I was just wondering if he ever talked about romance stuff, you know?" "Oh, we don't discuss that kind of stuff." "Oh, but there was one thing." "Nah, doesn't matter," Todoroki said. "No, it's got to be relevant." "What are you talking about?" Uraraka pushed, looking for any crumb for support. "He talked about a date or something the other day." "It's complicated, and none of my business, honestly." Silence then fell between them. Todoroki then left after a few moments, leaving Uraraka to process the news by herself. She knew Midoriya and Jiro were going to a concert later that day. "Am I too late?" Uraraka muttered to herself. After standing motionless for several moments, Uraraka finally found her footing to enter the school building. Although it was a quick walk to the classroom, it felt like an eternity to her. Only a few of her classmates were already in the room this early in the morning. Azri was flipping through a bulky book at her desk. Meanwhile, Todoroki and Ilda conversed towards the back of the classroom in a voice no louder than a whisper. Uraraka paid no attention to this, though, as she sat and stared at the blank chalkboard at the front of the classroom. The chalkboard reminded her of what her mind was like since she had entered the room blank. She was out of ideas. She was out of people she could talk to. Searching for any sort of answer, Uraraka then looked at the clock above the chalkboard. 20 minutes sharp until Aizawa would show up. Soon enough, the rest of the class would appear. But there was still no sign of Midoriya. "Well, if Deku doesn't show up sooner than later, I guess I'll have to get this whole dating thing cleared up another time," Uraraka muttered to herself. "I can't do it in front of everyone." "So, Midoriya, are you excited for your concert date with Jiro tonight?" Tokoemi said before taking another sip of coffee. "Not you too," Midoriya said with a weak chuckle. The two of them had departed the dorms at the same time, and decided to walk together to class that morning. The truth for Midoriya was that he was more than excited for the concert tonight. More excited than words could even describe. So excited that he was wearing his deep dope shirt underneath his school uniform. Remembering his discussion with Todoroki and Tokoemi about the whole date fiasco only added to his excitement and anxiety. Midoriya gave Tokoemi a double take when he realized Tokoemi had remained silent to his answer. After taking a moment to do a scan of his surroundings, and with no one else around, Midoriya knew he was in the clear. "Does Dark Shadow have your tongue?" Midoriya said. "No, I'm just perplexed by the fact you said not you too like that." Kind of a strange answer to a light-hearted joke if you asked me. "I know we had that whole talk about the whole date thing the other day." "Well, turns out Jiro thinks it's an actual date, apparently?" Midoriya squeaked. Tokoemi almost choked on his coffee, coughing several times before catching his breath at last. As they were almost at the entrance of the school building, Tokoemi thought of a way to make his point, as quickly as possible. "Midoriya, either it's a date, or it's not." "Goodness, I was just trying to ask if you were excited for the concert, that's all," Tokoemi said, making a mental note to himself to not make sarcastic comments to the overthinking Midoriya in the future. I know, it's just that Jiro called our concert a date," Midoriya said, as they entered the building. "You see, Jiro and I have barely talked to each other since Saturday, but she said she was looking forward to our date the last time we actually really talked. Why is everything so confusing?" Tokoemi nodded, as they came closer to the classroom. He would have never guessed that he would start his morning off by giving advice of this accord, but there was no way out of it now. Embracing the dark helped him to remain unfazed in moments like this. "Well, listen, I wouldn't worry about it. The bottom line is that you're both going to a concert together. Date or not, just enjoy the moment. And if anything romantic comes up, just tell Jiro how you feel," Tokoemi said. Now it was Midoriya's turn to nod. Perhaps it was just classic overthinking on his part, but for one reason or another, nothing seemed to make sense to him at the moment. But Tokoemi's advice was exactly what he needed to hear. "Just enjoy the moment, thanks, Tokoemi," Midoriya said, as they reached the classroom. "Oh, I needed to go to All Might's office for something. I'll be back later. While Tokoyami entered the classroom, Midoriya kept the phrase "just enjoy the moment" on repeat in his head. Even if Tokoyami had assumed that he was giving advice on how to get out of a date well, Midoriya thought about how he could parlay it into a date. And if anything romantic comes up, just tell Jiro how you feel. Yeah, if Jiro really wants this to be romantic, then I'll confess to her. That way I don't have to have any pressure about it, so I can just enjoy the moment, Midoriya muttered to himself. Now to schedule that lunch today with All Might. Back at the dorm building, it was Jiro's turn to depart for the school day ahead. She gave one final look at herself in the mirror before she left her room for the day. This is it. Just a day of classes, and then, I'm going to a deep dope concert tonight with Izuku. Today's gonna be a great day. As Jiro left her room, and navigated her way down to the lobby, the crisp winter air that greeted her outside was the perfect wake-up call for the long day ahead. Despite wanting to stay up to jam out, Jiro had gone to bed early last night. Prior experience had taught her that a rough night of sleep prior to a concert only asked for trouble. Thankfully, despite all the uncertainties with Izuku, and whether it was a date or not, she had fallen asleep rather quickly. She had decided that playing the what-if game was no longer worth it. She knew how she felt. She knew Izuku had fumbled over his words on Saturday, and she knew that she had even told Izuku that this was a date in her eyes. What more could she do? Today's the day. I'm not chickening out this time. I'm telling Izuku how I feel about him. Either he feels the same, and we're finally together, or he doesn't, and I move on. I'm done with the questioning already. Either way, we've got a deep dope concert tonight to enjoy. But first, classes, Jiro said, as she reached the school building's entrance. She was grateful that the walk to her classroom was quiet. The last thing she wanted was for Mina Ashido to interrupt her morning routine. They had still not talked since Jiro had told her to leave her alone in the limousine. After entering the classroom with only a few moments until Aizawa would show up, she took her seat, noticing most of the students were already there. Midoriya, however, was nowhere to be found. Then, as if it was right on K, Midoriya entered the classroom. He waved to a few students that had greeted him, including Uraraka. Right, as he was about to pass Jirou, he stopped. Good morning, Kyouka. Ready for deep dope tonight? Midoriya asked. Yeah. I can't wait, Jiro responded. Midoriya then made his way over to his desk, and took a seat, reaching for his hero journal from his backpack. Jirou, meanwhile, was grateful that Midoriya sat behind her at that moment, as she could feel the burn of her bright red face. This is gonna be harder than I thought. I barely muttered that out. How am I supposed to say I like him to his face? Jiro thought to herself. Uraraka's face was also bright red, as she saw the whole event unfold in front of her. Well, I can't talk to Deku about this stupid date thing with Jiro in the room. And of course Deku only talked to Jiro of all people, Uraraka thought. Moments later, Aizawa trudged into the room with his sleeping bag. He yawned, and took his place standing in front of the classroom, failing to change his facial expression even once. Right, as the bell rang to start homeroom, Aizawa began to speak. Alright. Don't get too excited when I tell you this. But Principal Niza has informed me that UA High School will be moving forward with hosting a school festival. Aizawa was interrupted with a flurry of cheers from almost all of the students. Aizawa then gave them a scolding look, causing the commotion to evaporate. As I said, do not get too excited. There are more rational things to do than discussing the school festival, so you have until the end of homeroom to pick Class 1A's festival theme. Go. Almost everyone shot their hands up into the air, wanting to be the first to suggest their idea given the limited amount of time before homeroom adjourned. How about a play of some sort? Ajui then interjected. Maybe a haunted house, Kirashima suggested. In the dark, nonetheless, Tokoyami said. Perhaps a contest or competition between all of us, Siro said. Maybe like a game show, Ilda offered. These are all good ideas. How are we supposed to choose just one? Hagakure pouted. Not my problem. Pick one, and move on, Aizawa said. The class then went silent. Who had the best idea? Would a vote be necessary to decide on which idea to pursue? What if there was a tie? What if they failed to agree on something before homeroom ended? They knew Aizawa was not messing around when it came to wasting time. Oh, I know. How about a talent show? Midoriya said. A talent show? Todoroki said. That's a great idea. That way, we can all do what we want to do individually, as an organized, collective group, Jayorosa said. I like that. Let's do the talent show, Jiro said. Ashido squirmed in her seat at the thought of an obvious joke involving Jiro agreeing with Midoriya, but knew she had no leverage to even attempt it. So everyone's in agreement? A talent show? Aizawa said. The whole class nodded besides Bakugo. Oh, sensei? Can we do partners or groups for the talent show, or does it have to be individual? Midoriya asked. You can do partners or groups. Just make rational choices. Alright, so it will be a talent show for Class 1A. Brilliant. Homeroom is about to be over. I will see you later for the heroics course, Aizawa said. After a hectic morning full of classes, it was lunchtime, and for Jirou, she knew it was time to strike. This was the moment. As the class scrambled out of the classroom, Jirou waited at her desk for Midoriya to clean up his school supplies. By now, she had figured out that Midoriya and Yaoyorozu were the last two students to leave the classroom after class ended, so it was the perfect time to stall to avoid Uraraka, and more importantly, Ashido. As Yaoyorozu left the room, Jirou walked out of the room with Midoriya. Oh, Kyouka, Midoriya then said. Yeah? I don't want to sound weird, but I'm so excited for Deep Dope that I'm wearing my Deep Dope shirt under my uniform, Midoriya said with a blush. Hey, me too, Jirou said, as they both laughed, but Jirou knew not to get too far off track. Midoriya had brought up the Deep Dope concert. No one else was around. This was the moment. The moment to set things straight, and end the misunderstanding once, and for all. Izuku, look, Jirou started. What? I want to know something. Midoriya's eyes were deadlocked with Jirou's. You can tell me anything, Kyouka. Jirou's heartbeat thumped faster, and faster. She could hear Midoriya's heartbeat thump faster, and faster, as well. I want to know if you would like to have lunch together? Midoriya's heartbeat calmed. Oh, I'm sorry, but I'm actually having lunch at All Might's office today. Jirou was dumbfounded. Whether she was dumbfounded with herself or Midoriya more, she had no idea. You sure do have lunch with All Might a lot. Well, I guess I'll see you in heroics class, and then after school for the concert, Jirou said. Yeah, see you. Midoriya was interrupted, as Jirou gave him a quick hug, and then dashed towards the lunchroom without him. Once Jirou turned down towards another hall, out of Midoriya's earshot, she groaned. The groan turned into a yell. Why can't I just admit how I feel to him already? Why is it so tough to do? Realizing she would receive no answer in the moment, Jirou set off into the lunchroom in defeat. She decided to get a sandwich for lunch, and after receiving a water bottle, departed Lunch Rush's line, and headed towards the tables. Seeing an empty table, she sat down, and began eating by herself. Talking was the last thing she wanted to do at the moment. Well, besides talking to Midoriya, of course, her one goal of transparency had failed. Knowing today's heroics class would only be a dry lecture, there were no more opportunities available to be alone with Midoriya before the concert. She would only have a few moments back in her room after the final class before it was time to leave, which was barely enough time to get ready for the concert. Considering how many people would be at the concert tonight, she figured the chances of them being alone during the event were slim to none, as well. As she nibbled her sandwich, thoughts swarmed her mind. Was it a date? Would she ever admit to Midoriya that she liked him? Why had Midoriya never asked her why she called the concert a date the other day? Does he not care whether it's a date or not? I was trying to get rid of these mental gymnastics. I've only added more, Jirou thought. Jirou? Jirou looked up from her sandwich, hoping it was Midoriya. She hoped she had another chance to admit her feelings to him right then and there. It was not Izuku Midoriya. It was Mina Ashido. Ashido. I don't want to talk to you right now. Go away, Jirou said with a flat tone. Ashido took a seat across from Jirou. I know, but I just wanted to let you know I'm really sorry. I should have never done that. I learned the hard way. The hard way, huh? Your words don't mean anything. If you're really sorry, I'll know by your actions. Stop being a matchmaker. Stop exposing people's feelings. And don't even think about telling anyone else about how I or Uraraka feel. Fair enough. I'll be as quiet as possible. I'll leave you alone now, Ashido said, as she left the table. Jirou continued to eat her sandwich. She plugged an earphone jack into her phone to listen to Deep Dope. The school day could not be over soon enough. After a rather boring heroics lecture for anyone not named Midoriya, class was dismissed. The school day was over at last. As everyone departed from the room, the entire class walked back to the dorms in a pack. Jirou did not bother to wait around for Midoriya to leave. There would be too many students around from all of the other classes to make a move right now. She figured it would be better to go back to her room, get ready for the concert, and then wait in the lobby for Midoriya. Already having her yellow Deep Dope shirt on under her school uniform, Jirou quickly took off her uniform, and got herself ready for the concert. She had been to plenty of concerts over the years thanks to her parents' involvement in the industry, but knowing it was Midoriya's first ever concert overall, she thought of some pointers to give him about concert etiquette. Once 15 minutes had passed, it was time to head down to the lobby. I wish I would have told him how I feel about him earlier on. I don't want to do it right before his first Deep Dope concert of all time. Date or not, it'll be fun for both of us. No need to stress about it. As Jirou left the room, her heartbeat began to quicken again. Her palms became sweaty, as well. Entering the lobby, and seeing a few of her classmates watching sports in the common area, she sat on a couch, and tapped her foot on the ground while she waited for Midoriya to join her. She tried to convince herself that she was only feeling excitement for the concert, as she twirled her left jack. Midoriya then entered the room. He wore a black shirt that had a white Deep Dope logo on the front. Reality had finally set in for Jirou. All of the years she had longed for someone to enjoy Deep Dope with her was finally coming to fruition. Just seeing Midoriya gave her all of the reassurance she needed that she had finally found that person. "Are you ready, Kyouka?" Midoriya asked. "More than ready, Izuku," Jirou said, mirroring the smile Midoriya gave. As they departed the building, Midoriya and Jirou walked side by side. The concert venue was about 10 to 15 minutes away from them in walking distance. Jirou could tell that Midoriya had a hop in his step as they left UA's campus. When the moment's right, I'll make my move, Jirou thought to herself. I won't mess up again. Thanks for watching my video, and make sure to check out the author of this fanfic. Link is in the description. See you next time. Till then, sayonara.